The Wheel of Time show airs, and episodes drop and are viewed, leaving scenes that become legend. Legend fades to season, and even season is long forgotten when the episode that gave it birth comes again. In one episode, called the fourth episode by some, an episode yet to come, an episode long past, a chatter began amongst the nerds of the internet. The chatter was not the Aftershow. There are no afters or befores to the airing of the Wheel of Time show. But it was an Aftershow.
Wow.
Hey everybody, how's it going? Well, welcome to an after show, because there are no afters or befores to the wheel of time. Yeah,
That was amazing. I am absolutely awestruck. That was really impressive.
I took the theme from one of the trailers. It's one of the. I rewrote it, copied it.
My head kind of hurts. It was really loud.
Yeah, I'm gonna fix the levels on that. I made it like an hour ago.
Also, I'm used to Zoom meetings, and I'm like, should I raise my hand? Should I be muted? What's happening?
Whatever. Nobody raises their hands at Zoom meetings.
Oh, Jared.
Okay, so this is the Wheel of Time after show. Today we're going to be going over the first 3 episodes, and we're super late, but who cares? It's technically still after the show. And I'm going to introduce my panelists real quick. I'm going to share my screen. All right, so introducing my panelists, I'm here with my dumb cousins who are avid book readers. First up, we have my cousin Nathan, who is a budding tech mogul. You may recognize his work. He's the sole lead designer on the app Meow Mixer. I'm told it's like Tinder, but for cats. And also joining us is my other dumb cousin, Jared, who is a world-famous architect. You may know his work. He was the lead designer on the famous building from India called the Taj Mahals.
How gay is this podcast? This is already really gay.
Oh dear.
This isn't a podcast. I don't know.
And of course, the introducing the trophy husband himself, me. So, I was supposed to say the enigmatic trophy husband. That sounded cooler, but I forgot that line. So yeah, welcome to an after show. I think that's what we're gonna call it.
An after show.
yeah, an after show.
Thank you for the introduction. Yes.
Yeah.
I resent it, actually, but it's fine. Go ahead. We'll talk later. We'll talk later afterwards.
Okay, I'm sorry. Please come back. So let's talk about the Wheel of Time show. I'm going to put on the spoiler level ticker for anyone watching the video. We will have 3 different levels of spoilers. We're starting off spoiler free, just talking general vibes of what we think about the show, and then we'll get into each episode and talk about the episodes, the first 3 episodes. But you might get some spoilers from book 1. We won't like spoil the finale without saying so. And then at the end of the video, we're going to go talk about series-wide spoilers and our feelings. So, I mean, you guys can actually introduce yourselves if you want. I mean, I thought mine were pretty good. But how many times have you guys read the books?
Oh, so many times. I've read them through probably at least 3 times, but I've listened to Audible, the audiobooks, at least 3 more. The first 1 to 6, I've probably listened to about 7 to 10 times or read, and the other ones I've read at least 3 each. So,
because you'd started reading them during publication, right?
yes, I am much older than both of you.
Not that much.
Yeah. Just let me have this. Let me have this, Alan. No, but yeah, I started listening to them or reading them. I remember the 9th one came out, so Winterheart came out when I first started reading them. So I read up to that point and then had to wait.
Yeah, and then he got me hooked on them. So that's when I started kind of reading them. I was much slower paced, so I read the first couple at the same time that Nathan had introduced me to them, and was getting caught up to the 9th book. But I definitely took my time, and so yeah, I listened to so I read those first ones many moons ago, and then I got back into them and then listened to them on Audible as well, and finished up the series.
Mm-hmm.
So.
I'm thinking about it now, and I've always had a real hate for that 9th book, so I'm suddenly understanding maybe why. Because that's like when it stopped, and you're in the slog, as they call it, right? Like many things are happening, but nothing really huge is happening. And it's all kind of slow, and then you have to wait 3 years for each publication. So.
And some other people have talked about this, and I think that the slog is more so like an element of its time than it is a reflection of the quality of the books, because I didn't read the series until after it was all done, and I didn't have a problem. It's true that the slog, what's considered the slog, those books are slower, but I loved them, and I never had that moment where I was like, oh, I'm getting sick of this series. But I can totally imagine how, reading the series as it goes, how it could get pretty tiresome.
Yeah.
Having to wait between publication and then having it be a book that's not quite as exciting.
And I will say, I deliberately went through and listened to them all back to back. And just like you said, I didn't find it bad at all. There wasn't a slog when I did that. It's that wait, and I think waiting for the publication as well, that really was difficult. So
I was honestly confused, because I've only read through the series once, and I heard about the slog a bunch, and I was like, when is it going to start? And I had to keep looking it up. I was like, wait, the people said this book was bad? I was like, I love that. I love this one.
Well, to be fair as well, without giving away any spoilers, some really major things happen in those books too.
Yeah.
And then the next 3 books, you're kind of catching up from other people's perspectives. And there's always that point in the book where they catch up and suddenly you're interested again. And it's really, really, really cool. But those I don't know, 3 or 4 books, it is really frustrating when you're wanting to see something new.
Everyone
and then
says
you just
a
keep
different
kind
number.
of rewinding to that thing. And again, if you're listening to it back to back or reading it back to back, it's not as difficult. But waiting for them to come out was very difficult from experience.
Yeah.
So.
And everyone has a different number for how many books are in the slog anyway. So I don't think it really exists.
Yeah.
It's a figment of our imaginations. And I've told this story on this channel before, but a lot of people haven't heard it. And I don't think you guys have even heard the story, but you two are basically the reason that I read The Wheel of Time, but not how you think. These guys are basically like my second family. I lived in their house for like 2 years.
Yeah.
And I would visit you guys at least once a year, Because I lived in a different state, but we'd come every summer. And I kid you not, every time I'd come to your house, I would just stare at the Wheel of Time books because you had all of them. I would just pull them out and just look at the covers. I'd be like, these look so cool.
Sure, that's what you were doing when we couldn't find you. Yeah.
No, but I honestly, I know that I've spent hours just looking at the covers in your basement.
Yeah.
And I never read them because I'm dyslexic. And reading takes a long time for me. And so I stopped reading like books for a really long time, like come high school when there was required reading and it was dumb. I used to read a lot. I read Ender's Game like in elementary school, like 6 times. So I was above my reading level, even though I had dyslexia because I liked reading. And then high school's like, that's an unrelated story though. But then I discovered audiobooks.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, I can do this while I'm driving or working. And so I listened to the Wheel of Time all the way through. It was great.
This may be unrelated, but those book covers are iconic, right?
They're great.
Because of Darrell K. Sweet, the illustrator who painted them. And when I read through everything and I got to the end and I was waiting for each book, I went on a Darrell K. Sweet hunt where I looked up every book he had illustrated because he's prolific as well. And he writes all of those fantasy books. And if you look at the covers, they could be in Wheel of Time. They're just different series. Mm-hmm. And that actually introduced me to a lot of other books as well. Consequently, obviously, hopefully this isn't a spoiler, but Robert Jordan dies before the books are actually finished. And then
spoilers
before
for
the
real
I know
life.
before
whoa
before
I don't know if that
end
was low
of
level. But...
the last book though, Darrell K. Sweet died, so he couldn't even do the final book. So it was like,
so he never got to finish. Oh, that's depressing.
That last book is completely unique.
Who did?
I am a super fan, but I am not so much of a super fan to know the name of that is illustrator. But
so did he do the 14 books then?
He did the last book. The very last book that was published in the United States, he did the illustration for that book. Oh,
Sweet.
Darrell K. Sweet did all of them but the last book.
But the last one. So he did New Spring too.
Yep.
Okay, and that's funny because I've always thought that the last one had a different art style, and I didn't know why.
Definitely does. I'm
pretty sure it's the same artist that does Brandon Sanderson's.
I believe so.
That does his Stormlight Archive.
Which would make sense because he was working with him at the same time. But just like interesting.
It's the style of the sword on A Memory of Light that looks like the rest of Sanderson's books.
Yeah.
Well, that's cool. So let's talk about the show then.
Oh wait, we're not talking about the books.
Well, we love the book.
That was an introduction.
Yeah, that was we're like
the book
an hour.
of the picture.
Yeah,
sorry,
so
a little bit of an inside joke.
We all love the books. I think they're fantastic, and I'm reading the physical books now, and it's taking a lot longer, but I want to at least do that once. And the show is already past where I'm at in the books.
Oh no!
It passed where I was at. I'm halfway through book 1, and it goes through that in 2 episodes, and I'm like, oh well, okay, screw me. I was trying to keep up.
That's actually one of the comments I was thinking about as I was thinking about my first impressions. Is that like I think overall they've done a really good job at kind of bringing everyone who's your hardcore fans plus new fans in together on the same page. But at the same time, I feel like there's a few spots where I'm like, I wish I could have gotten a little bit more from that. Like I wish I could have seen more because this is such a great part of the book. Yeah. Right. So
episodes 1 and 2 are like move the plot along as fast as you can, and then 3 and 4, which we're not talking about 4 yet. Oops. They slow down and get to like character development exposition.
Yeah. Agreed. I feel like overall, I'm pretty happy with the direction that things are going, the way that they're introducing this world to the audience, because that is a really hard thing to do to someone who hasn't read the books, or even to adapt to someone who has, and to make sure that it can work on this medium. And I feel like the care that they've taken is really showing. So there are definitely. Oh, Jared is gone. He disappeared. He didn't like what I was saying. I'm sorry, Jared.
You're muted. You're muted. Hold on.
Yeah. So
sorry, I had to sneeze. I didn't want that to be on camera.
You're right. So I definitely can see that there are some things that differ and things that are updated for like a modern viewpoint. But ultimately, I'm excited to see where they're going, and I feel like I finally have that level of trust, having seen these 3 episodes, that I trust the changes they do make and the direction they're heading.
Yeah. I feel like for the most part, every change, I understand why they're making the changes. Like you have to, when you're making an adaptation, you can't not change stuff. Like otherwise, why make an adaptation, right? If you wanted to just read the books, if you want the books, right? And that's not to say like, oh, you can just, throw the source material away. But when you're working in a new medium, there are things in books that work well in books and suck when they're put into a movie. Mm-hmm. Like you can't do like internal monologue in a book, in a movie. It doesn't work. That's why like the Ender's Game adaptation is garbage, because half of that book takes place inside the main character's head, and it's fantastic for the book, but it doesn't translate well.
Yeah.
So you have to make changes in adaptation, and I feel like the changes that they have made are very intelligent.
I agree. And as long as they're staying with, I feel like Robert Jordan's initial, when you hear him talk about the books at the end of the Audible books, you'll see there's always an interview with Robert Jordan about his books.
Yeah.
And he always mentions like a few things, and even I won't mention them because of low-level spoilers, but from what I can see now, that's already a big part of the show. So even though there have been changes and updates, I really am excited to see where it goes. And instead of me being like watching it and thinking, well, that's different.
Yeah. Oh no.
I'll be like,
why
oh,
this?
That's different. And I'm like, interesting.
Yeah, it's the same phrase but with a different intonation. It's okay, that's different.
And then I'm kind of like,
okay,
yeah, moving on. So.
One other thing too that I've really enjoyed is that you can tell that like they've done so much research and so much sort of they've got a lot of aids to help these kind of new watchers, right? Like these extended sort of extra clips.
The bonus content. The animated is so hard to find.
Yeah. Well, I mean, even
Amazon, if you're listening,
Amazon,
it's so hard to find.
For real. It took me 30 minutes to figure out how to watch your stupid animated shorts, which are amazing.
Yeah.
But what the crap?
And only on the
Just
app. I can't find them on the TV. I could not find them on the TV still.
Just have them available as like, okay, so episodes and then plus, I don't know. But you have to, I can't even find them on my desktop. You have to play the episode and then pause the episode and then go into extras. And if you're on episode 1, you'll only see a portion of them. You have to go to the latest episode to get, it's terrible.
Yeah,
sorry, go ahead.
I agree. So the structure is maybe not great, but like the fact that they've taken it and
they are great.
These are some things that can help kind of tell a story. Plus, even just on the Amazon page itself, they have so much content, right? Like they have maps you can explore. They have character like sheets about.
There's a timeline too.
Yeah,
it's super awesome. Yeah, they put in a lot of effort outside of the show into the show that it's unnecessary.
But kind of necessary though.
Like no other show would have done that, right?
Yeah.
It wasn't necessary that they did that, but it's very nice that they did. Like it was very considerate of them to do.
I think they understood how much content there is and how in depth this world there is,
and how much they're gonna have to skip.
Yeah, and no matter how much good writing they have in an episode to kind of bring about the world and these little intricacies, there's so much that I think it was smarter of them to release that. I just think it should have been released probably a little easier for people trying to find it.
Honestly, I think they should just release I think they should have released the shorts before the show.
Yeah. Are there more shorts after this next episode?
After episode 4, yes, there's a new
Oh,
one.
what? Okay, I haven't seen
Yep.
that. So good thing we're
Yep.
not talking about that episode, even though there's a lot of good stuff in there.
Yeah. So should we get into the breakdown then?
Yep. Let's do it.
Episode 1.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're changing spoiler level to moderate.
Ooh, oh boy.
What does that entail?
Oh, so we'll talk about this season and stuff from book 1 that maybe has been pulled out. I mean, let's not spoil the end of book 1 until spoiler level high.
I guess I'm wondering about things that are going to happen or major changes, because I feel like there were some major changes in those first 3.
Yeah, so major.
episodes.
Let's save that. Let's save that till the end then. If we have to talk
Just kidding.
spoilers. Okay.
I'm kidding.
I feel like episode 1 is super tight.
Mhm.
It's probably like the cleanest of the episodes. It's just Winter's Night. Is it Winter Night or Winter's Night?
I think
Is
it's
it plural?
Winter Night.
Winter Night. Okay, it's just Winter Night. Introduces all the characters.
Beltane or Beltane.
Beltane, Winter Night, same thing.
Yeah, sorry. I'm just adding
Yeah.
more context. We're in moderate level spoiler. I thought
Beltane. Yeah, Beltane, because Robert Jordan loves having 3 names for the same thing.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's definitely something I realized too. I was like, oh yeah, that's these people. Oh yeah, that's this.
I mean,
Yeah,
what
okay.
is Beltane though? I'm pretty sure it's like modern day Christmas, isn't it? Because Beltane is based on a real English
well,
holiday.
because I mean, if you look at like the actual celebration that they do, it's kind of like the is
Or
it
like the
Gaelic?
burning-
like
yes.
the spring pole where you like dance around the pole.
Yeah, okay.
That's how I always envisioned it, as kind of like a Nordic.
Isn't this though?
Yeah.
It's Winter's Night though. So it's not really, because there's
Yeah.
snow on the ground.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure it's based off of like Beltane or Beltime or whatever it is.
but
which I
they
should
dance.
research
They
more.
dance in front of the boys.
Yes, they do.
Like all the women do a dance. It's just a winter dance.
Yeah, it's
It says it's the North Pole, and they dance around it with.
Wow.
do they do a poll? Is that mentioned?
No, but I'm saying it always felt similar to
Right.
that kind
You're
of
thinking, yeah,
to
of
that
like a
kind of
maypole.
celebration.
Yeah, I understand.
Yeah, a maypole.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
there's no pole in the books. I'm just
No,
saying, like,
no.
It's very good that we clarify that.
Yes,
the
no
women-
poll in the book.
Yes, the women dance on a pole in front of the men.
That's actually
Maybe
in episode
maybe
4.
we
You're
should put,
spoiling.
like,
Oh, sorry, I'm sorry.
You're
We're
ahead.
not talking about episode 4. I'm sorry.
Well, maybe we should make sure that this is labeled mature content ahead as well. You know,
Yeah, I was like, how should I not be using vulgarities? I'm
Not
so
for
sorry.
children.
Nudge.
Okay, so episodes 1 is about Beltane / Winter Night, and then Trollocs.
I think they did a great job on the Trollocs. The Trollocs look scary. Oh, well, I should say there's
Most
moments.
of the Trollocs? Yeah, most.
Yes, there's
of the
moments
time.
where I'm like, oh, that's great CGI. That's great makeup.
Yeah.
That's like,
There-
great.
Yeah,
And then there's others where I'm like, that's a dude in a suit. Yep.
there was one CGI shot that I was like, that looks terrible, but the rest of it, I was like, pretty good CGI. It was the first Trolloc who gets cut in half by Moraine.
Yeah.
When Nynaeve and Egwene are hiding in the corner, and the Trolloc comes up to them, and then there's a shot where he goes, and I'm like, oh.
Okay, wait. Are we starting at a specific point though? Because I want to get to the Beltane scene as much as possible as well. It was the best part of the whole
Yeah, it was
episode.
absolutely fantastic.
And Moraine and her use of the one power and whatnot.
Oh, yeah.
That's so good. But I don't want to skip over anything that may have happened earlier in the episode.
We skip. I guess the cold open is Red Adja.
Right, and Logain, who's clearly
Not Logain.
already. Yeah, it's Logain.
No, not Logain.
No,
Logain's
they're
dude.
chasing a
It's,
different guy.
No, it's Logain.
It's a random guy. It's not.
Yeah,
What?
Logain.
just a random,
Is it
random
different, really?
Chandler.
It's different.
Yeah, it's a random
Well.
Chandler.
They're chasing just a guy who can channel, and they steal him on the spot. And Moraine is standing on the cliff with Lan saying, "Oh, well, it wasn't him, so we don't care." And they're like, "Well, next village, off to the two rivers."
Off we go. I did not notice that, so
Yeah,
that
it's
is
a
a
different
good.
character.
Because that does make sense why. Well, we're not talking about episode 4. Maybe we should just talk about episode 4 because I feel like this keeps coming up.
We can talk about episode 4. I'll just have to
Yeah.
play a different intro at the beginning.
Life is so hard. Okay.
No, we can
it just changes one line from in one episode 4 by some. You like how I just ripped off the entire intro to the book?
We did.
Yeah.
I wanted to be like, some actors change in the second season, but no actors are.
When we get to the second season,
Yeah.
I'll have to do that. I'm so mad about that now because Barney Harris's performance has been so good.
He has been.
I'm
very
like,
good.
I'm gonna be real sad season 2.
Actually, that's a nice segue to the stuff they added in his character development because I thought that really was helpful to understand where he kind of ends up, and you care a lot more for him as opposed to just like the womanizing, gambling scoundrel that he is in the books. So
and it fits perfectly.
Mm-hmm.
That so his parents are both scumbags, right? His mom's a drunk, and his dad doesn't care about his family, and you just see like the bitterness in him, and it explains why he's so carefree and like. But you also now know that it's a facade.
Yeah,
that he acts out probably to save face for his sisters, so that they won't take life so seriously. And I think that's beautiful.
Well, and it's like that continuing pattern, right? Where they do talk about his mother's a drunk and his dad's like a womanizer to some extent. And then you start to see him echoing these same patterns later in the books.
Mm-hmm.
Or we will, hopefully. So it kind of makes sense. I also do see more of their relationship with Rand and Perrin, and that development makes
the boys' relationship with each other is great in the books, but it takes a long time to develop. It really takes for them to be separated for their relationship together to be developed. But in the show, you see it immediately.
Yeah.
And I love Matt with his sisters. But go on.
Well, yeah, I was just going to add to that I think it's also great to see just more of this sort of development in all of the characters, right? Like you see a little bit more about Perrin's story too. Like you really don't get any of that in the first book. And so it's nice to see. I mean, obviously it does stray away from the book, but at the same time, it is nice because I think it does give a really nice story to why.
Yeah, I felt that with all the changes taken into consideration, the spirit of the book is definitely still there, and the characterization of each character is spot on.
Yeah. I was going to add to that too, though. That have we seen much about like Rand's background and character development? Like we haven't really.
It opens with him talking with his dad,
and
then his dad gets injured. I would have loved to be able to see him dragging his dad back to Emmons Field after the barn.
That's
but
right. Yeah.
Totally understand why that's cut. But like that would have given huge like flashbacks or
trauma.
They could have totally played homage to the Fellowship of the Ring.
I mean, this whole book is very Fellowship of the Rings.
It is.
Like you notice that when you read it.
But it could have been like a little nod, like just like running from the.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Jared, to answer that question, though, I don't think they really go into his backstory, but they do develop he and Egwene's relationship more than they do within the books.
Yeah.
So that's a big thing.
And because they skipped the dragging his father back, you don't get the revelation about his past.
Yeah.
Which I guess we can't talk about now because spoilers.
Yeah, and I don't know when it'll be revealed.
Or if it will, I don't know.
Or if it's a thing that, it definitely matters. So
it matters. We just can't talk about it yet because the show hasn't talked about it.
Well, how dare they?
Yeah.
But the book says it in like chapter 1. So
that's the thing I've noticed too, is there's a lot where I'm like, oh yeah, I wonder how they're going to reveal this or how they're going to reveal that or like.
So, we talked about Rand and Matt. What about Perrin?
I like what they did with him as well. I feel like it's nice to see maybe why he's a little more tortured
Yeah.
and quiet.
I was worried. I did not know that he was married, and then there was that line, and I was like, no. What are you doing? What are you doing? And I was like that. It took like a minute, and I was like, what are you doing? Oh, okay.
Yeah, I know that they talked about in some of the promos where he was wearing a wedding ring, and so
and I didn't catch that. I totally missed it.
Definitely something new. Again, I was worried as well, but I think the way that they took it in that first episode was really good, especially with how he develops later on in his kind of arc.
So, how do we feel about fridging a female character?
Can you explain that?
That's a common trope in film and media and books where you kill off a female character who has a relationship to the main character so that they can grow. It's a trope, and a lot of people frown on it. And I say, Fridger, baby, there's already too many female characters in the Wheel of Time.
So heartless.
You were excited to do that one, weren't you?
You've been waiting. You've been waiting for that.
I wrote that. Sure. I wrote that joke. No, but like the Wheel of Time has so many strong female characters.
It's true.
I don't care if they fridge one girl, especially if it was a girl that didn't exist in the books anyway. So
that's a valid point. Very valid point. Yes.
But I loved that it was that it wasn't just Trollocs that killed her; it was his own hand.
Mm-hmm. Because that's important,
and with an axe, because that brings up it's so great for what's going to happen later on that we can't talk about yet.
Yeah, well, the other thing too about that is that first off, I think that moment was effective, right? Because all of a sudden you're shocked. You're like, "Whoa, what just happened?" Like
it added stakes too. It added stakes.
Well, yeah, and the other thing too, and the other thing too that was nice is that it shows not just about like, you know, why he's quiet, but why he's taken with this sort of battle fury, right? Like
why he hates violence.
Yeah.
Like he's good at violence.
Yeah.
And he hates it because he likes it.
Yeah. Yeah. So I love that part actually, because that's where I was like, oh yeah, like that explains so much that potentially you may not understand, you know, at this point, especially.
Yeah, and it's a great way of adapting, right? So it totally comes. It's not in the books. It's completely made up, but it's all done to illustrate internal monologue that you would get in the books, like that you can't put in the show, and it encapsulates his entire psyche in 5 seconds.
Yeah. How do we feel about Nynaeve getting dragged off by Trollocs?
I laughed so hard.
Yeah,
because everyone hates Nynaeve.
That is not true.
Until you love her.
I have always been a huge Nynaeve fan. She's always been one of my favorite characters. But I will say, even watching this with Christina, like immediately she was like, "I don't care. I didn't like her. She's just angry." and I understand that. Like the angry woman is a trope as well.
Her role in book 1 is the naggy woman. Right, yes. Like she's the one pulling everyone back. No, we got to go back to the village. We can't have an adventure.
To be fair, though, Robert Jordan, and no disrespect meant to him, writes very angry women. He just writes men as women, then describes their clothes in great detail to prove that they're women. And so
he gets a lot better at it. I mean, this is his first book, and his writing improves vastly.
He definitely does.
Just between books 1 and 2 and 3.
But I do understand why people have such hate for that like angry woman trope. I find it interesting, and I think the way she's played it so far, especially with what they're kind of bringing into her being an outsider in the village as well, and like this mysterious past that we don't know anything about because we never knew that from the books. Like this is completely new.
She has been my favorite performance.
Me as well. I agree.
With you,
I would say Nynaeve, Lan, and Moraine have been my favorite.
Yeah,
so far.
But I feel like hers is the most like book accurate too. Like everyone else is like, yeah, that's the character, but
And the
Nynaeve
braids,
is like,
which I think is such a smart
yeah.
adaptation and interpretation of it, I think is so good.
Yeah, it's Nynaeve is absolutely like when I read the books, I will see her face now. So
Yeah.
like absolutely perfect casting and such good acting. But it was so funny to see her get dragged off.
Me too, because I mean, I've read this and I know I'm like, no, this isn't happening. She's one of the most important people in this story. But even watching it with my dad, we were watching it together, and then things happen obviously later, and it was just funny to see him like be shocked that this moment happened.
Has he finished the books?
He's finished. Yeah, he's read all of the books as well. Though every time that I watch this with him, I have to be like, no, that's that character. No, that one.
Oh, there's
this
so
one
many,
is that one's though.
There are so many names. I couldn't tell which
but like
who
Nynaeve,
all the Aes
like
Sedai are.
stuff like that. Where I'm like Nynaeve, that's a big character. Come on,
it's a big one to remember. Come on. No, I love that that Beltane felt dangerous. That Perrin's wife was killed in it. It matured the series, which is something that we can talk about because they're a lot older than they are in the books. Yeah, and I think that that's an appropriate change because book one is kind of different from the rest of the series anyway. I feel like Robert Jordan hadn't quite found his groove yet. And it kind of feels like an outlier, especially if you talk about like the finale of the book is kind of really weird. And so I'm glad that they've made these characters older and the changes that they made. I feel like they're taking book one and kind of sliding it over a little bit so that it looks like the rest of the books in the series.
Yeah. I also don't think it's really clear to anyone how long these books all take, like in real time. Like how many years, right? It doesn't feel like 3 years.
It never says like
and
time
it's
passes.
14 books too. So if we're doing a seasonal book, I feel like that gives them so that they're not going to be getting young actors who are not going to age well. Or
like if they started young, it would feel weird, and so now they're at the age where their looks won't change as much. It's smart.
I don't have an issue with that. So
yeah, we'd hate to have a whole Harry Potter thing, going on.
Well, that's fine because they get a year older every year.
They grow in the books. Yeah,
it would be more like a Game of Thrones where the Maisie Williams character is supposed to be like 7 the entire time.
Yeah,
but by the end of the series, she's like 30.
That's true. That's true.
I'd say the passage of time is even obfuscated more in the books because the seasons stop changing, right?
Yeah, so you don't really see it
because the Dark One's influence on the world stopped.
Wait, spoilers! What are you talking
about?
That's like general world.
That is a moderate. That is more than moderate spoiler. There's a Dark One. What?
There's a Dark One. No, they've said the Dark One.
I'm kidding.
But they've also mentioned that the winter was. No, they haven't mentioned that. I've been reading the book. Okay. In the book, they mentioned that this winter is lasting too long.
Yeah.
And they're like, when will summer come? Winter's night. Narg. There was the Trolloc at the farm.
Was that his name?
Yeah, the one that speaks.
Had a name?
The one that talks.
Oh, the
talking Trolloc. Who stays behind, and then when
there's a whole conversation there about how sad that fight was with Tam, which we've already a little bit talked about, independent of this.
Tam, they did Tam dirty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. I thought that so in the show, Tam fights one Trolloc. The choreography of that fight scene is actually really good.
Yeah.
It shows that Tam knows what he's doing with the sword, but that he's rusty. He clearly has techniques, but he's out of shape. He hasn't touched it in 20 years. But it's like riding a bicycle. He's still a sword master. And I don't know if they've mentioned it in the show yet, but a heron-marked blade can only be earned.
They haven't mentioned that at all yet.
So a heron-marked blade is the mark of a sword master. You can only get it by being a sword master. You can't go and buy a Herrenmark blade. So
Jared
Tam's
is reading
father, or grandfather Tam, is real good at fighting. And that scene was okay. The problem is it's juxtaposed with the rest of Winter Night, and you have Perrin's wife kills like 3 Trollocs by and the little girls are killing Trollocs. Okay? the old ladies gang up and gang bang a Trolloc with their forks.
Yeah.
And so, like, if those, and there's nothing wrong with that either. I thought it was cool to see the villagers fighting back and killing Trollocs. So those scenes on their own, they were both fine.
Difficult.
But when they're together, it made Tam look like an idiot. In the books, Tam has to fight off like 50 Trollocs.
Yeah, by himself.
Well,
at the farm
yeah,
stand.
well, that's the other thing too. Like, if you think about it, he's off at another separate farm, right? And so basically, what the show's insinuating is that only one Trolloc goes off by himself to attack
to kill
farm.
Rand.
Yeah. So you're like, okay, so there's one Trolloc there.
That's
They barely were able to kill him.
That's the only thing I honestly disliked from episode 1 was Tam did a dirty.
I agree. I do feel like I wish they had talked about the sword more as well, because you don't really see how important it is to some of Rand's like character development and his like focus on who he is and his heritage and family. And part of that is obviously because they took that scene away when he's bringing him back from the farm, but also they added a scene that you don't even see in the book, which was probably the best part of the episode, where it's just where you're going to see Moiraine kick some total trash.
Yeah,
and,
you don't get to see
like, use of the one power as well, which was incredible. So
you don't get to see any of the fight at the Wine Spring. What's the town's name? Shoot, Emmonsfield.
Yeah, and Emmonsfield.
Also, one thing that I didn't realize until the 3rd episode was Tom, because the Gleeman is supposed to be at the village at this point, and we don't meet him until later.
Oh, I recognized. I knew that he was missing, and I was actually glad. I was like, okay,
it makes sense.
There are too many people to introduce right now, and when they introduce him later, it's like, oh yes, we have time to introduce this cool character.
Do we want to talk more about that scene, the fight scene at all, or anything there?
With Moiraine? Yeah, absolutely.
Go ahead, Jerry.
Well, what we kind of talked about in the chat, I think that it was really cool to see, and this is another sort of introduction to the whole series as a whole, I think, is to show them how a warder and an Aes Sedai work together, right? Like, there were so many parts where it was cool to see Moiraine, and she's like doing her.
It was a dance.
Yeah,
they were dancing together, and it was
watching each other's backs, and
it was great to see how they showed that in film. Because in the books they just say, hey, they know they have a mental connection. They don't need to talk. They can just do whatever, and they showed that without saying it, and it was cool.
Yeah.
I also
she ducks at one point, right?
And he jumps over,
does the back, and which was a great moment.
Or he immediately ducks when she like does magic over his head, and like
I also like the introduction of the magic use there, and because you can see, even though they haven't, I don't think they explain it till later, or maybe in one of the bonus contents.
She's pulling elements from the world.
But she's pulling elements from the world. So you see
she's
it pulling from the stone
weave.
wall and the fire over there and the air, and
so
it's really, really well done.
You want to explain how the magic works?
No, I don't at all. No, that would be a major spoiler, I feel like. So have to change our spoiler level.
Okay, really,
no,
hold up real quickly.
No, are you gonna do it?
Okay, so magic.
Everyone dies.
Magic is different elements, and you pull on different elements and weave them together. It's described as pulling on the threads of the weave. So the entire world is woven by the wheel of time. Everything in existence is part of the pattern, and when you make magic, you pull on the little threads and you make your own pattern, and you get a magic ball.
Yeah.
So you pull on different elements, and so it was beautiful to see her in that scene pulling on the earth, pulling on the fire, pulling on the air, and you saw it like touching the bricks and then weaving it together into a magic. Super cool.
I do wish
Back
that
down
it
to
were
moderate.
more specific to a weave. Like you could see this pattern a little better because they do such a good job of that in the introduction that we see at the
Yeah.
beginning of the next episode, where you see the pattern of ages, like the age lace, which was so beautifully done. And
The intro is gorgeous.
really, really, really good.
It is. Yeah.
But we can't talk about it because we're talking about episode 1.
Oh, sorry,
it's not in episode 1. Spoilers.
This is over. Oh, we went back to moderate. I didn't see it. I'm so
Yeah,
sorry.
No, yeah. And some people are complaining that the magic is just white instead of being multicolored. And my opinion on that is, this is better in that it's easier to track. But once you get into like learning how to do magic, like in the White Tower, then when it's from the person who's doing its perspective, it would be cool to see different colors.
Yeah.
But from someone outside seeing white, I'm fine.
I agree. And that's why I was worried about it, because I had seen the promos and could only see those kind of ambiguous like magic kind of threads. And I don't know. I showed Jared this, but if there's another TV show I watch called Discovery of Witches, which is really, really well done. In the second season, they have kind of a moment where they do the same thing. They like pull like a thread, and then she like pulls another thread, and she like weaves it together. And she's like literally sewing almost these.
I watched the first episode of that, and I was like, this feels like a show that I should watch with my wife, and I'd feel weird watching it alone.
You should definitely watch it with your wife. The second season is incredible. That's where they hit their stride.
It looked really good, but I was just like, I'm not going to watch this by myself.
I need to send you this clip though, because this came out 2 years ago, and when I saw this scene, I literally thought to myself, this needs to be similar, or the way that they do the weaves in Wheel of Time. So I was a little wary because of they weren't colored threads. But to our point from before, I really think that they did a good job. And when we go further into it, with maybe someone learning, which who would be learning? I don't know.
It also making them just white also simplifies the difference between male channeling and female channeling.
Correct. Yes.
If we're seeing a bunch of colors, and you like, it's going to be so hard to track, right? It's super easy in the book because you can say this person channeled, that person channeled, right? but in the show, having white for women and then white covered in black for men, it's going to be so much easier.
Yeah.
Also, it's cheaper.
Yes.
But I do hope that when they start learning how to weave, that we get to see colors. That would be.
I agree. I'm like, get that season 2 money and just like bust this out. Season 2 money. Get it.
So I think we've covered pretty much everything from episode 1. In the opening scene, we got to see post-apocalyptic buildings after the Red Aja. I liked it.
I initially liked it. Generally, I think it's good. I'm a little wary though, because I feel like part of the world that was so beautiful and great is you don't really know if it's like our future or if it's our future but like way in our future, or what this is. So to me it was almost a little too literal, this representation of skyscrapers, especially since I've kind of seen that before, right? Like with Terry Brooks and the Shannara series, like that's very, very literate. They will have like a skyscraper or a reference to some technology that was clearly ours, not even like pretending. And part of what I loved about it before is you don't know what.
But you do know that it was sci-fi-esque.
Yeah, you do know that it's
very
futuristic.
Advanced.
Yeah.
People make buildings. And they didn't look like regular our world buildings. They were spirally and...
I feel like later in maybe episodes, it was less apparent.
Yeah.
Specifically the bonus content, I think. I was like, okay, that's a little better. But I think my first impression of that scene, though I did gasp at the end, was like, and was like explaining it to everyone around me who has no idea what these books are about. I was a little disappointed. Just
It's because the books are technically sci-fi books.
yeah, I was like, I watched it with Christina, my little sister, and pausing it and being like, "This is gonna be this movie. We're just gonna pause every 2 seconds."
To the naked eye, it may appear that these books
you don't understand
are a
that,
medieval fantasy, but only the layman would fall for such a guide.
according to
They are, in fact, sci-fi books.
actually in the original text.
If you read the companion book,
Which I have, Wheel of Time Companion, I completely have it.
which includes all of Robert Jordan's drunken notes on
Right.
napkins at bars.
Yeah. I'm excited though. I think that the architecture and here's the architecture student in me, but
this is why you're here, Jared. This is why you're here.
Yeah, like this is why I'm here.
I just don't want it to be too derivative. That's the thing. Like,
yeah. I can feel it.
And that's kind of.
I think you're wrong, but I understand you.
Jared, go ahead. I'm listening to you.
Sure,
go ahead.
Sure. No, but I think that's what's interesting is that it kind of hits to it. It's like, oh, what time period is this? But all the other stuff we've seen has all been more kind of medieval looking, right? Yeah. So it's interesting to see like a lot of the other set pieces and buildings are definitely more medieval.
And it's not even the books. It's supposed to be past medieval time. It's supposed to be more like Renaissance time period.
Yeah, depending on the culture or where.
I think he said it's supposed to be like Renaissance, except that gunpowder was never invented because that's kept secret. That's like supposed to be when it's about what time period it is. So more stuff from Land's butt.
Oh, the butt.
The butt.
Well, let me just tell you, as a spoiler for the other 4 episodes. Only one butt has been seen. It
is the only butt.
So I am not complaining. It was a nice moment, but where are the butts, people?
Where be the butts? I liked Land's butt, and as I've always said, it's not gay if it's fantasy roleplay.
I disagree, but I understand what you're saying.
Is it gay? I don't know.
You know what? That's like we can talk about that later in our private channel. You call. We can talk this out. I'm here for you, Alan.
I actually did really like that scene. And this is something that Rafe Judkins, the showrunner, has said, that he really wanted to explore Lan and Moraine's relationship because it is a super interesting relationship that they are so close they can basically hear each other's thoughts, and it's not sexual in any way. Like they're just friends, and it was really cool to see that scene where he's like, make the water hotter. Come on. What are you doing?
Yeah. There was some nice subtlety to it.
And they're naked to each other. And like, there wasn't like any sexual tension. I didn't feel it.
I agree. Part of me. No, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, part of me knows that they put that in there just so people would be like, this is a butt show. I'm going to keep watching this because this is a butt show. And I'm like, that's not what this is. Actually, there are moments of this. But it's not going to be Game of Thrones with like boobs every episode.
It's not the focus at all. No.
We're not going to have butts and boobs every episode, and thank God for that. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to say, Nate, is essentially I think they've kind of recognized that that's what Game of Thrones did, and they're going to be like, no, like, we're not doing that. So,
well, talking about butts, boinking. There's boinking in the show.
There is.
Episode 1. How do we feel? How do we feel about that?
Jared, go ahead. This is yours.
Well, we didn't explicitly see any boinking, so that's good.
They could have just been cuddling, a nice talk.
Yeah, cuddling.
All shirtless.
Yes, exactly. Without our clothes.
In the middle of an occupied inn.
Yeah, that was weird. I was like, what? Like, this is downstairs, isn't it?
My wife turned to me. She's like, where are they doing this?
But
there are people staying there.
They had
that
to
is
do
not sanitary.
Fire, right?
That was
Are
a
they-
table.
Did they go up to a bedroom, or are they just doing this in the common area?
I would not want to be
Like, don't
a
use that
customer at
mug
bar
later. Don't use that mug later. More people about that mug.
No, they mentioned
know.
they mentioned coming down from a room, but the fact that they both came down shirtless was like,
I mean,
read the room.
read the room. I thought it was interesting. I'll say that. I don't see an issue with it.
No, I think it makes sense because they've aged up
does.
the characters. Although I did really like in the books how Rand was kind of like a prude. like the first time it happens, he's like, "Oh, I have to marry you now."
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
I thought it was kind of a really endearing moment that he's got these
Yeah.
old-fashioned morals. And we're definitely not going to get that when that happens later on.
Yeah.
Well, but at the same time, he does kind of have that idea, right? Like as soon as that happens, like that's what that whole discussion is about. Is
Right,
like,
right.
hey, well, now we're gonna raise kids. Like now we're
Right.
together, right? And then she's like, I was kind of thinking maybe not. Like,
I just
so-
know that that's one of my favorite moments from the books when
I agree.
it does happen. He's like,
Yeah.
marry me, I guess.
yeah, a lot of respect for Rand.
Hey, we have to.
I liked what it did though, because I feel like you see a lot of understanding of the woman's circle, right? Like, or being a wisdom that very clearly this is something you either do or you get married. You can't do both, right? It also is interesting, their whole dynamic, which is different in the books, but is a lot harder to explain. So I feel like this is kind of an easy out, and it makes sense for kind of where we're going as well as we move forward.
It's a practical decision in my opinion.
Yeah.
It makes sense. And we haven't talked a whole lot about Egwene and the women's circle. They
right.
just push all the little girls off cliffs, right?
Yeah.
And we've seen promotional material that is pretty clear.
That's
that we haven't seen in the show that clearly happens. Then I'm assuming that we'll get to see that
Either that or
as a
that's
flashback when she's in the White Tower doing similar things.
Maybe,
it'll be
yeah.
like you'll see a parallel.
Yeah, I could see that. Either that or there is some real parallel between the things they do in the White Tower. Again, we can't really get into that.
Well, we know that there is because I mean, Nynaeve listening to the wind is channeling.
Right.
She just doesn't know it.
And they do talk about that as well, which is nice.
Yeah.
In that episode with Moraine, how her mentor went to the White Tower and they turned her away.
That was cool. It was cool.
But I remember I told you this that I would recognize because I thought that was kind of a weird moment to have that be one of their traditions and just like pushing them off this and the river and such. And this may be getting into episode 2 again, but they do talk about when they talk about the One Power specifically, or even in the books, they talk about the women channeling as like accepting the flow or the power
Giving
as
into
a
the flow of the
stream.
river.
Yeah, I think they use that exact analogy.
Yeah,
in the
there's
second
two
episode.
analogies. They talk about opening the bud
The
of a
flower,
rose,
yeah.
and once it's opened, you have to give yourself to the stream.
It's
and
very
let
much a
it,
surrender
let it
moment,
carry you. So yeah,
which is
it's a
different
parallel.
than how the men channel, which again we can't really talk about as of yet. But I thought it was a nice moment, and again just shows them
Foreshadowing.
or shows me only the foreshadowing,
It shows
but also
that they care.
how
they know
much
what they're doing. They're
understanding
paying
they
attention.
have to the source material.
There were lots of moments in the episode where you're like, oh, this is not necessary, but they're putting it in there as like a hey guys, you want to see a dragon fang? What if we made it out of dead sheep? What if we make it out of blood in a pool?
That's exactly what they were doing, and I
Right.
was
I love
for it.
Love it.
100%. Yeah.
Also, with that point, Nate, there is actually the extra episode or the extra content for the 4th episode actually is explaining that very thing that you just talked about.
Well, I'll have to watch that and then our next little chat when we talk about episode 4 and possibly 5, because who knows when I'll have time again.
Yeah.
We are pretty much at Nathan's mercy here.
Yep.
When we do the show, we're a week late. We're a week late on this show, and
Yes, that is my fault, and I do not apologize.
no.
That is called a boundary. So
I think that's
get some
everything.
boundaries, Alan.
I think that's everything from episode 1, except that another doing Tam dirty.
Yeah.
Rand's father Tam. They're all the names sound the same. Rand, Tam, Lan, Man, Drag, Aran. And all of the Aes Sedai have names that start with A.
It's true.
Or E. But so Rand's father, one of my favorite moments from the book is when he has to leave the village, and he's like waiting, hoping that his dad will recover from his injury, and he finally does, and he's like, Dad, they're trying to get me to leave the village, and his dad's just like, oh yeah, that makes sense, you should go. And you're like, what? I love that moment between them in the books. It's like, no, yeah, what Moraine said is pretty logical. They're clearly after you, and it kind of hints at the revelation that we don't get in the show yet. That he's like, yeah, I guess go.
Like, pushes him out of the nest there.
And he gives him the sword. He's like, yeah, I can't come with you. I have a hole in my side. But go. I like that moment. But that's episode 1. They leave the village.
Yay.
Yeah, that was definitely subpar in the show, I think, where they're just like,
they had to rush it.
You guys, let's go.
Which, if you notice, that is the reason why they took Nynaeve out of the equation. Yep. Because she wouldn't have let them leave. They leave in the middle of the day. In the books, they have to do it at night, and so that she doesn't find out. It was a practical. All the changes they've made have been super practical, so they can speed the story along. Nathan, you had mentioned that you were worried about the line that the Red Aja says about how when men use the source,
I did mention that.
They poison it.
Yeah, only
because I said I cannot lie. They are bound by.
Hey, that's the second episode again, Alan.
Well, we're on episode 2 now.
Oh, fine. Okay, fine. We'll do it.
We're doing episode 2, but talking about something from episode 1.
Yeah, I did have that because I was worried that they were changing the reason for the male, like the issues with the male channeling, which is a pretty big part of the books and the story itself. In the Sense episodes and the bonus content, that has been cleared up, so I don't have an issue with it. And clearly, it's just some red idiom.
But right? it is cool because what she said is not true. But from her perspective, that is how she felt, and she was not lying.
Yeah.
She believes that men are poisoning the source, and it's really cool to see that. How yes, Aes Sedai are bound by magic. They cannot lie, but that does not always mean that what you get from them is the truth.
Yeah.
And that leads perfectly into episode Dose Baby, which is 2 for all of you laymen. Because White Cloaks, holy flip dang it. Yeah. We cold open with Pedro Nile being the biggest dick I've ever seen on camera, I think.
I've seen bigger. But I watched different videos than you, so could see that. That's a great segue, too. Also, these White Cloaks are attractive.
Yeah.
That's my only perspective, but I was like...
They are hot. They are all hot.
Like, yeah. Blessed be the light. Like, praise be. Like,
praise the light. Give me one of them robes.
Right. No, the concepts there were really, really nice. Very well done.
The guy who plays Pedro Nile makes you hate him in less than a second.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Can we talk about the hands?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that was crazy.
I thought he was eating them at first.
No. Yeah, I was a little worried when I saw it. I was like, where is this going?
It's interesting to me because when I watched it, I was trying to not be someone who's like knows everything about these books.
Right.
And in my head, I was like, well, how did she get captured, and why is she just letting herself burn? Like, what?
Exactly. Yeah, that does bring up an issue. Like, I love that the White Cloaks are scary now.
Yeah, they have real teeth, as opposed to before, we were kind of like,
But Aes Sedai are pretty dang powerful. How has he killed, what was it, like 9? He had 9 rings. And the fact that he keeps the rings hanging on his belt is so freaking pompous. I love this character. I love how much I hate him already. And he's had like so little screen time.
Yeah.
So how is he so good at killing Aes Sedai? Is it because of the second oath?
Well, I was wondering if it had to do, because you also notice every time they use the one power, they're very expressive. They're using their hands. They're very
which
jazz
is
handsy, right?
it is and isn't an element in the books.
Right.
It's
They talk about it
stated
as a focus or how they
you
learn
don't
something.
need to move your hands to do magic, but everyone learns the magic with motions, so they kind of like handicap themselves. And if they can't, if some, the unskilled Aes Sedai will not be able to channel without doing the motions, even though it's technically possible to do without.
Yeah. So that's what I'm wondering, is if they're alluding to the fact that you have to use your hands or gesticulate, whatever that word is. Gestate like a baby. That was not the right word, guys. Sorry. But and
I'm
that's
okay
how
if that's
they're
a
taking
change.
them out. You have to gestate to do this magic. That's why they're all women. There
it's true. I mean, only women can do it.
Yeah, and that is an interesting
if that is a change, I'm okay with it. But I don't think that they are making that change. I think they're just saying that most Aes Sedai are incapable of doing it without their hands. But also, how did he get her hands chopped off? It seems to me like, is he just really sneaky? Does he go in disguise and be like, I am not going to hurt you, and then like, oh, quick, chop your hands off. How is he so good?
I do have a critique though, because I hate the rings. I think the rings look so dumb.
They're too big.
They're way too big.
They are big.
And I understand why they're putting like the ring, the color with the Aja, but
it was nice that they were all uniform in the books.
Yeah, because that's part of the plot later on.
Yeah.
So we'll see if that happens. But also,
it's
just so conspicuous too. It's like, how could not anyone know you're an Aes Sedai when you have this huge gaudy ring on your finger that kind of looks?
Yeah.
It just
I mean, I feel like that's kind of the point of the change they're making in the books. Like, they're not afraid to show that they are Aes Sedai, but they're also making changes where maybe they should be afraid to show that they're Aes Sedai.
That's true.
So I like that White Cloaks are scary. I think that they need to justify it, and they need to show why they're this powerful. Otherwise, it's going to be like, huh?
I agree. And we don't really know much about their ideology yet. Like, they could be Mormons or like Catholics. Like, that's all I'm really getting is like, you get
big Inquisition vibes.
Yeah.
Like they hunt down.
Clean cut. Like, they all have the same haircut. They're all bros. They all work out at the same gym. I need to know their ideology, like the reasoning behind this, because you do kind of understand it in the books. And also, I mean, that kind of brings us to, well, it is in the second episode, but when they're talking about the 3 O's, and they mention specifically they took them at the time of Arthur Hawkwing to stop that siege, which I thought was really interesting. As opposed to that they just have always had those.
Yeah.
Since the breaking.
I don't know the books well enough I didn't know if that was a change.
I believe it's a change. Yeah. I don't know if they mentioned specifically when it happens. It definitely wasn't in like before in the Age of Legends.
Yeah, because they didn't have oaths in Lews Therin time.
For several reasons, but from my understanding, that was a change in the books.
I always assumed that it happened after they stilled all the men. Mm-hmm. And now they're just like, okay, we've gotten this under control. We should probably get ourselves under control and just make sure that we don't become evil too.
Specifically, the forming of the White Tower is kind of what I imagine. So I could be wrong. Maybe I need to research that more. But
I don't know. I don't know the answer to that question. But it was
that I thought
interesting world. Yeah. And we can. Yeah.
What's next on our list here?
Well, the episode's very linear. We go from White Cloaks to Padron Nile. To Padron Nile to Taran Ferry, or as I like to call it, just the Taran.
I just imagined a Nazgul like riding up on the other side and be like, Rah! Like with his like. Also, Trollocs can't swim. It's kind of like very impotent of them. They're just all sitting on the edge of that thing. Like, do they not have bows and arrows? feel like they had bows and arrows before. Maybe some of them, didn't they?
Yeah,
They're just sitting there like, oh, they got on a ferry, guys. They're too smart for us.
They got away.
Yeah, but that moment was nice. I thought it was.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was cool to like see them, face off kind of without having to face off. And yeah, the Murdrawl is pretty intimidating. I like them. I like the Fades.
I go back and forth because I think they, as a concept so far, all they are is like a scary face that screams like a ring wraith. So
yeah,
we haven't really seen any of the rest of their characteristics that are really terrifying as of yet.
Yeah, I was going to say that.
And some of those characteristics are kind of hard to adapt.
That is true, and I think they've done a good job with that. So,
Moraine kills a guy, kind of.
I don't. I like her explanation as a fighter that.
I love that it's getting into gray morality. You're like, I technically didn't kill him. He jumped in after I made the whirlpool, and I like that they are giving the series weight. There's consequences to everything. Like lots of people have died already, and it feels real.
I agree. I don't understand this gentleman though, who's like, I gotta take this ferry back to the Trollocs. Like, they'll be fine. They'll let me give. I'll just excuse me. Look, I gotta get past you. Like what do you think's gonna happen? Like I don't understand.
Yeah, I think he was trying to save the boat more than he was trying to go back to the other side immediately. Maybe he was just hoping that they'd go away and he could take his boat back. But
it's not really clear.
Maybe stay on this side.
So.
Well, but also at that point too, it does mention this sort of ideology that the Aes Sedai may not be the best. Like they may not be the heroes.
It served to introduce how not everyone likes them, and it kind of justifies the White Cloaks' existence.
Yeah.
And then we get more White Cloaks. We get the
I thought that was a good little segue for sure.
Yeah, we get the interrogation, and we meet Bornhold, Joffrey.
I always thought it was Joffrey.
Yeah,
you're gonna look up our pronunciation, guys. But yeah, we get that whole scene, which again I thought was really well done in the way that you see how she twists the words.
She's technical. Everything she's saying is true. My favorite, Joffrey, Bornhold. My favorite moment of that interrogation is when he asks,
like when he hits her wound a little bit.
Yeah. So he said. So he asks like, how were you wounded? And then he says like, where was it? Clearly asking like, where were you wounded? But because he didn't specify that, she didn't answer that question. And she said, oh, we came from the Taran Ferry.
Yeah.
Instead of saying we came from Emmons Field.
And then they talk about
he was clearly asking about Emmons Field, but she didn't give that answer because he didn't technically ask it. And I was like,
yeah. Honestly, that whole conversation, every single question he asked and every way she twisted it, and that the acting there as well was amazing from Rosamund Pike.
And then they explain it in the very next scene what was going on. We didn't need the explanation, but obviously the audience does. And I thought it was a great way to say it. Like, no, I technically didn't kill anybody. I technically didn't lie. All of my sisters are sisters.
Sorry, I have people like crawling behind me because they don't want to be in this video, and I'm like, what is going on? Could you not? Sorry.
Okay. A interrogation, and then we get Weep for Manetheren.
Yep, Weep from Manetheren.
It's a good song. I like the song.
The songs have been decent. Very, very good. They seem real.
I actually like that song better than Tom's song later.
Ooh.
You know what? Can you boot him out of this?
I'm just saying, look.
Oh, he did it!
Look, all I'm saying
You're on the bottom now.
all I'm saying is that for Gleeman, I felt like he should have been more. Like it should have been more. Like I don't know. Maybe it's just because I didn't get chilled.
Jared, we
I
can
don't
talk
know.
about that more. I agree to you to an extent. I feel like they always talk about them having different styles, though, right? Like a high chant or
That's
a
true,
tavern
that's
thing.
true.
So that's a
Yeah.
style, and it was a choice, and I thought it was a good moment. But that's episode 3. Excuse
Sorry.
you.
Sorry, my bad. Well, I did like the song. I did like the song a lot, though.
Yeah.
That they were singing about the Manetheren. I really enjoyed that one.
I think they seem real, like they could be real, like folk songs or community songs they're singing. It was a nice, again, way to bring in their past and to have Maureen kind of explain that more.
Yeah,
Well,
and it was a great way to bring in an element from the books that they had to skip in episode 1 because it's supposed to happen in Emmons Field, the speech she gives. And Rafe said he actually really fought to keep that song. And so it's nice to like go back and like, okay, this is a little bit of world building.
Yeah, I liked it too because they were all singing it together. So it kind of like says like, look, this is a song that everybody in Two Rivers knows.
Everyone knows it, yeah.
And then it kind of goes back into this sort of, okay, this is such rich history that kind of gets passed down, and they don't know why it's been passed down or why it's important necessarily, but it's so rich, right?
And that's one of the whole themes of the book, though, Jared, is how these like history and facts and how they change as the wheel turns and things are completely different or misunderstood or remembered differently in later telling. So I think that's a good way to start bringing that into the story.
Absolutely, well. I totally agree. Man, it feels weird being on the bottom.
Maybe don't say dumb
Accept your place, Jared. Accept your place.
Then this episode slowed it down a little bit. With after that with the song, and then we learn about channeling with Egwene, and she does the little pendant thing. It's all straight from the books. But we skip a bunch of chapters because we don't even make it to the town.
Right.
Who cares?
Well, this is
what it's called. Well, I'm trying to look up what it was called.
Baerlon?
Baerlon, yeah, that's it.
Yeah, because isn't that where they meet Min in the books the first time?
Yes.
Interesting. Yeah.
So we skip over Baerlon, we skip over Min, we skip over Podon Fane.
Yeah,
again.
Who was in the first episode.
Oh, yeah, we didn't talk about Podon Fane.
Yeah,
sorry, I forgot.
Get a little creepy, interesting vibe from him. I
like him.
It's great. Yeah. Interesting things to come. Things to come.
So when do you think we're going to see Min?
I was just wondering about that. I know they cast her, so
I think
probably if they go to Andor, maybe that's the big city.
Well, we also we know
Whitebridge.
Could be Whitebridge. I'm thinking the White Tower.
I could see that. Because
they skipped over Baerlon, and they've mentioned Whitebridge, but only as a pass through to get to the White Tower. And so right now everyone's destination is meet back up at the White Tower.
Yeah.
I think we'll meet her there because we know for a fact that Caemlyn is right out.
Right.
We're not getting Caemlyn because they only just barely cast
Elaine
for season 2.
Never mind. I was going to say something about, didn't they just show that briefly in the 4th episode? But
nope, that's Gildon.
Yeah, that's different.
Yeah. Okay. But I did want to mention too that it was kind of strange. Rand's sort of dream.
His dream. Yeah.
That was.
It was good because that would have happened in Baerlon. They're in the woods, and so it's bats instead of rats.
Yeah.
Loved it.
I've actually been very surprised by how accurate or like because I don't know how actually accurate they are, but they're pretty well done considering how they consider the the dreams of the books. They have a lot of dreams in this book, I feel like. But I remember specific parts of each of these dreams that they kind of mention, and I didn't think I was going to see that specific. So I thought that was a really good moment, and I was very creeped out
and you're already seeing
confused.
You're already seeing wolves in Perrin's dreams.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was interesting too.
And mirroring basically what he did.
Yeah.
Yeah, the dreams were cool. The bat in Rand's mouth was unexpected,
disturbing.
Yep, very hard to watch.
and I guess I understand why. Can we say his name?
Why he's not person with the flame eyes.
Why kind of red eye? I understand why he's not talking. I kind of wish he was talking.
Yeah,
because I liked how he was probing in the books, like, because it's you find out that the dark side doesn't know specifically who the Dragon Reborn is either.
Yeah,
I don't think that's spoiling anything, because
no, they speak
the good guys don't. They have a vague idea of who it might be, and so do the bad guys, and so they're kind of probing and trying to ask him questions in their dreams to figure out who's who.
I agree. I think right now he's more of a jump scare.
Yeah,
and I don't.
Which I get. Like, there's a lot of stuff to go over. I understand why he's doesn't have any lines right now, but I liked that element of the book. So
I do too, and he is a pretty major part of the books. And right now, specifically with what I've seen of them, I'm not.
He's not.
I'm not impressed either. I'm kind of like, oh, cool. Ooh.
Yeah, I agree. So, I've definitely been underwhelmed with that particular.
The bat coming out of the mouth was scarier. Like, just cut that whole part with him.
It was.
If you're not going to do it
right. I hope that's not like his final look. I feel like
I hope so too.
I'm hoping that that's just like a thing that he's showing. He's choosing to show them. It doesn't look great. Bats channeling. The next scene, I liked how Rand yells at Moraine.
Yeah.
And makes her explain herself. And she's like, nope. And leaves. And then Matt's like,
stop being a dick, basically.
We should probably follow her.
Yeah. And Egwene, too, you really see the loyalty there has already shifted, especially with their when they talk kind of before.
But I love
when he tells her basically like go away, like, please.
I loved that people started butting heads. And Rand was standing up for himself, and Moraine is like, I don't need to explain myself to you. You can stay here and die, or you can come with me.
I mean, after seeing, he wasn't there, I guess, that night, but kind of makes sense. The other people know what she can do, really, really, literally. And he maybe doesn't have that same experience.
Good.
So,
and we get wolves with Perrin.
Yep.
Licking his wound
and looking really like young and kind of silly like they're cute. They're not menacing at all. Not sure if they're doing that on purpose or not, but it's an interesting choice.
Not a whole lot to talk about there, though. So let's get to Shadar Logoth.
Shadar Logoth.
Shadar Logoth. I'm still going to say Shadar Logoth. That's how they say it in the audiobooks. So screw you.
Screw you.
How we like Shadar Logoth? We did not get to see
Mordeth.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
we did get to see Mashadar.
Mashadar is actually the ways, so that's not right.
Machin Chin is the ways.
Well played.
Which I honestly, if I'm being honest, I looked that up a couple hours ago because up until a couple hours ago, I thought they were the same thing.
Oh no!
I didn't realize there was a difference between Mashadar and Machin Chin.
Yeah, I mean they're very similar. Interesting. To answer your question though, I liked it. I thought it was very interesting, very creepy. I thought it did its job. I wish we had spent an entire episode there, which again,
It was too
the
quick.
pacing.
It was too quick.
Yeah, but really cool. The wall and the concepts.
I liked how they changed it because it's described as a black mist,
Mhm.
which is why I got it mixed up with Machi.
Yeah, I understand.
Because that's the black wind.
The black wind is what it's called. Yeah.
And so this is going to help differentiate them because it was literally a part of the city.
Yeah.
It could only
can't
move
leave
with the city. It wasn't a smoke. It was just on the surface, and it couldn't leave. I thought it was a great interpretation of that. It was probably a lot cheaper to do too, because they could just do like a mask and make it dark.
Yeah. I thought it was good though. Go ahead, Jared.
Well, I'm just saying that I thought it was amazing, but I agree with you, Nate, that I think, well, and you too, that honestly it was too quick, right? Like I felt like they were in, and then Matt finds the dagger, and then they're out. Like I remember reading that part of the book, and I was like, "This is so cool! There's this treasure, and there's like this mystery, and like,
which would have made our characters look really stupid."
Right.
I'm glad they changed that. I'm glad it was just Matt who goes wandering off, and
that's true. But I was so I was left wanting, right? I was like, oh, it's Shadow Logoth. Like this part was so exciting, and there was so
it needed more time.
Yeah, and then all you see is basically,
I wanted to see more of the structures like crumbling. Honestly, like when they got to the locked door, I was like, oh, it would have been great if they're like, oh no, we're stuck, and then he's like, let's try and open it, and it just like falls apart.
Yeah, that would be cool. Yeah, especially since they showed how the horse literally decayed.
Yeah, and that was well done too, for sure.
Super cool.
But yeah, I like that conceptually too, with the wall and making that a big part of it, because that's the whole point of that city that they talk about. Right, how they turned their backs on the world and then were consumed from within.
It's a tall wall.
That was really cool.
Yeah, and I know I've heard things too where they kind of talk about that evil because it's so different than the dark one.
Yes, and
in the books too, they're very specifically like almost anathema to each other, and they kind of talk about the dark one as like an external evil, and then Mashadar or that is like a human evil, right? Human paranoia and fear and greed and all these things. And so honestly, I thought they did a good job.
They don't really get into it a whole lot in the books, and part of the reason why I get things confused. But it's almost explained better in the show.
Yeah.
I liked it. It was too short, needed more, and then everyone separated, and Nynaeve.
Also, I don't really understand why Moraine. I'm wishing Moraine wasn't wounded, because that's different than in the books as well.
Oh, they flipped the roles. In the books, Moraine was the one who knew they would have to go through Shadow Logoth to get away from the Trollocs, and Lan was the one saying, "No, don't do it." And in this one, it's the roles are reversed, and she's like, "You've killed us." He's like, "Yeah, but also you would be dead anyway, so let's go."
But what a good ending though with Nynaeve.
Nynaeve, oh, so good. Obviously, we knew she wasn't dead, and it was
what?
She's not dead. It's perfect time to bring her back.
And show us a little more of what she did too, which obviously the next episode's going to be about. So
episode 3 is the flashback, which makes Tam's character look stupid. I love that Nynaeve is shivving a Trolloc like it was awesome, but it makes Tam look stupid.
Also, I understand conceptually and like cinematically why they do these scenes, but I really hate watching horror sequences where it's like they're facing the camera with a monster behind them and they're just kind of hoping. Like, oh, I'm sitting in the water.
There was one shot where she was in the water and he was above, where like he's clearly in the island.
Clearly, yeah, and I hate that so much, especially if you're hiding. Like, you best believe I'm gonna have them in my sight. Like, I'm gonna hide from them, but I'm gonna know where they are. And so
I did like that he immediately just starts stabbing the water, because where else could she be?
And the whole dragon's thing as well that we see in the blood when she kills him is really nice too. Another call.
And I didn't even realize this until the show that I thought that the dragon fang symbol is literally just
half of the
half of the
and the
peace
Aes
symbol.
Sedai symbol. Yeah.
Like I
And
knew that it was a dragon's fang. I knew that the peace symbol was the symbol of like the dragon. Is that what do they
No,
call
it's
it?
the peace symbol is the symbol of the Aes Sedai and the dragon, I guess.
No, the Aes
But the Aes
Sedai is
Sedai.
the flame. So the Aes Sedai is the
Well,
bottom half, and the
specifically
dragon's fang is the
in the Age of Legends, it was the whole thing.
Right,
It was
okay,
the Aes Sedai.
right,
So then later in
right.
this
It
in
splits.
this age, it splits, and you have the flame.
I didn't even know that. Like I
of the Aes
knew,
Sedai, the flame of Tarvalon, which is the other one with it going up, and then the dragon thing coming
Right.
down, which is
I
so
knew
smart.
that I knew that the peace symbol was a Aes Sedai symbol, but
Right.
that was Luz Theron time, and I knew that the dragon's thing was like that, but I didn't know that it was just the same symbol, just separated. I think that's really cool, and it's very poetic.
I remember being like a teenager and being like, "Oh my gosh,
It's the yin yang.
what?" Yeah,
I mean, I knew about the yin yang because of the cover of the one book where he's got it on the flag.
Well, and the chapters as well. When they show the dragon flame, they show it that way, and then the whatever.
Yeah,
so it's just
audiobook.
really poetic. Oh yes.
I didn't get that detail.
Of course, yes. I'm so sorry for you.
Honestly, the worst. I've loved doing the audiobooks and getting to listen to them. The worst part is I have no idea how to spell anyone's name.
Yeah, that's bad. And they're really weird spellings too.
They're horrible.
Yeah.
They're horrible. Nynaeve? Why is there an A in there?
Nyvaeve, I think is Nynaeve.
And then Egwene randomly.
Egwene's pretty much what it
I
is.
always spell it
Egwene.
I know, but it should be Wane, and it's not. It's Ene. Egwene, not Egwene.
I always said it Egwene when I read it initially. But that's neither here nor there. We're getting distracted out of it.
Episode 3.
We can have a whole episode where we talk about pronunciation and
There you
how
go.
angry
That's
we
not
are.
a bad idea.
I know how to pronounce everything. If you read the books, you're screwed.
No, because actually, even in the audiobooks, which you'll notice and it'll drive you crazy, Kate Redding and
they pronounce them differently.
they pronounce them differently.
Yeah, the worst part of the audiobook is there are 2 words in the series that are pronounced identically, and they mean very, very different things. It's the it's something with the Aiel, and they have a thing in their culture that is that phonetic. Huh? No, it's not that. I can't remember specific. I'll look it up and we'll talk about this in another episode. Yeah. But there's something with. I just said their name, and now I can't remember.
Aiel.
With the Aiel, there was something in their culture,
which are
that was used a lot. Phonetically, phonetically, it's spelled differently in the books, but phonetically, it's pronounced exactly the same as something in a different culture. Where with the Bowl of the Winds, the city that they're in.
Oh yeah.
What's that city called? It's like the name of the city is pronounced exactly the same as something from the Aiel culture.
That's
or maybe it's
drive me crazy now.
Or it could be it might be the Shan-Chan. What's the name of the? It's not a Damani. It might be Damani. I don't know. There's one word, and I was confused for like 3 books until I looked it up, and I was like, okay, these are 2 different things.
Because there's Domani, and then there's like a region that's like
called
Domani. It's very similar, but it's spelled
Damani.
differently.
It's Damani.
Yeah.
Okay, so Damani are the slaves.
Women as
Damani are the slaves. No, so it's not Aiel, it's Shan-Chan. Damani are the Shan-Chan slaves, and there's literally a city called Damani. It's called like it's Eridaman.
Yep.
The area is Eridaman, and the people are referred to as the Damani people. That was so confusing because I couldn't see the words, and they're spelled differently, and it's not a problem if you read the books. Yeah. That was horrible. I was and that was like during the slog too, and I was like, "What is going? I don't. Why are they talking about these people? I didn't think there were Shan-Chan here yet." Like, Yeah,
that's right. That'll
episode
be
3,
horrible.
I guess.
Yeah, episode 3. Yeah, we
Yeah.
were already there. We were talking about Nynaeve and the dragon's fang and killing
Okay, so let's. I'm going to split this one up into the 3 different. I'm not going to go scene by scene, but the
Story.
3 different story arcs. So Land and Moraine
That's fair.
meet up with Nynaeve. It's super simple. You get Lan and Nynaeve talking, and she does healing,
She does healing.
and that's it.
It doesn't really show that it works either. It just
Yeah,
shows
which well, it doesn't work, so
Yeah.
that's why.
Yeah.
And Moraine's wasn't injured in the books, so there's like no real precedent for that in the movies. But,
yeah.
And then they end up going to
To the Red
to
Hotcha,
find the Red Hotcha.
and
Yeah.
you see Logain at the very end. Cool.
Who I feel like I cannot believe that I misunderstood that was not Logan.
Completely different.
I just
actor,
need to
Yeah.
like
Totally
rewatch it and shoot. I'm upset about this.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So we get Logain, and there's not a whole lot to their plot until the very end. You see Logain and the other Red Aja, and it's a cool little cliffhanger stinger to end on.
I do like their rapport
Between Lan and
Nynaeve,
Nynaeve.
and they
Yes.
start to build that. Yeah,
Exactly.
And also
And
you start to see her character more.
Yes.
Yeah, I have no issues with this story arc. I think
No,
it's
no,
really well done.
It's simple, but it gets some like world building out of the way, and it gets character development, and you get to see Nynaeve, who's been kind of missing because she was missing. And then Perrin and Egwene's story is probably the worst arc.
Yeah, definitely.
They just run through the woods, and then you get hints that Egwene could be channeling. But was that you or me? It was fine. It wasn't bad. It's just nothing to happen. And they're kind of chased by wolves. But then they're like, "Oh, the wolves led us here. Maybe they weren't chasing us."
And also, where are they? Because I feel like they got suddenly
really separated,
so different in such a different area than everyone else.
Yeah, it felt like a completely different.
Yeah.
Tundra, right? Like,
It was very strange.
And I will say, my brother, who has not read the books, was confused about that part, because with this was episode 2 and episode 3, he felt like it got a little repetitive in that they were getting chased by Trollocs, and then they stopped. They can't come this far, and then they were getting chased again. They won't follow us. They won't cross the river. They're chasing us again. They won't go into the city. The wolves are chasing us, but they are going to stop. And I was like,
that's
yeah. Like,
Yeah.
This is, like I didn't even notice that because I was reading the books, and I was like, okay, this is this good. But then shoved all together, it's a little repetitive.
Yeah, and
point.
I think that's kind of brings up what we had mentioned before in our private kind of conversations, is that I felt like, at least in episode 3, that it just felt slower, right? Like everything was it was a lot slower than what I felt like the books were, right? Because I mean, I felt like the books, the first book at the beginning was definitely a little slower, kind of introducing some of the characters, and there's a lot of traveling, right? You're like, hey, we got to travel and we got to go, and that's always kind of the case when you have that in a book. But especially in that episode, I was like, oh man, okay, this is literally the same scene. It's them getting chased by more wolves, and then it would cut to Rand, and then it would cut to Moraine, and then it would come back still getting chased.
It was nice that the general pace slowed down so you could catch your breath and get to know the characters, but there just wasn't a whole lot of interesting things happening with Perrin and Egwene, and then you get the Tinkers.
Even the conversations they had, though, which I feel like could have been so good to kind of explore what he's feeling or his trauma, and both of them, right? They've just gone through some major stuff. Didn't really give me that, and it really.
I liked the one conversation right before they met the Tinkers, where she's like, "It's not your fault," and he's like, "Yeah, but it is."
Yeah, but that's like all you see.
Yeah.
Otherwise,
that was. But the other scenes were not great, and even the scenes with the Tinkers were honestly kind of awkward.
Yeah, until the next episode, but.
Yeah,
but again,
totally like switched. Like the Tinkers were some of the best parts of episode 4. So,
Yeah, I did like the beginning of where they do meet the Tinkers. It's kind of menacing. You're not
Yeah.
sure what's happening,
Yeah.
and then they talk about the song right away, which was another thing I wasn't sure they were gonna bring into this.
Which wasn't necessary because it doesn't go anywhere in the books.
Yeah, but it's one of my favorite things about the books. And the Tinkers as a
I'm not saying that as a bad thing. I'm saying it's a good thing to see the showrunners care about these details that are, if we're being honest, completely irrelevant. But it shows a reverence to the source material.
And also we meet Aram, who is another great character.
Great character.
So,
and I'm sad. Random Matt.
I'm like, why are you sad, Alan?
I can't say. Random Matt.
Ooh, again, I thought it was great.
By far the best arc of this episode. They talk, and Matt is hilarious. He's always super practical. Like, shut up, stop yelling. We're being chased by Trollocs, dude. His line in episode 2 is like, well, Moraine can throw fireballs, so maybe let's
literally
get close to her. Like, I'm loving Matt's character, and I hate how much because we're going to see him changing, right?
Right, and you already do see him changing a little bit in this episode.
Yep.
Even my sister Christina called that out. She's like, "Oh, he's different, and I really liked him before."
It was
and then
good.
She's like, "Why could that be?" And she like,
I think it's done really well in the show, and not so well in the books because Matt totally sucks in book 1.
Yeah, he really does.
But easily becomes most people's favorite character come book 3.
Yeah,
or come book 2. I started liking him. And he's super boring. And I have a friend who's reading book 1 right now, and he's like, "Am I supposed to hate Matt as much as I do? Because he's a dick."
Kinda. Yeah. In this
I'm
one.
like, yeah, it's on purpose though. But I like that we get to like him first before that happens.
Yeah.
Because it'll hurt more.
Plus, we meet Tom with a song.
Tom.
Which, Jared, what was your opinion of the song?
Loved it.
Maybe could you?
Okay, with the song, I just felt like it was too slow and there wasn't any instrumental to it. So he was like, he'd strum and then he'd like say a couple lines and then he'd strum, and that was pretty much it. And I was like, for a Gleeman, especially for like an introduction to what a Gleeman is, I was like, I think they could have taken that way better.
I see your points, and I agree, and I want to see way more of him because I do want to see his expertise, and I want to see, because really Tom is a badass at everything he does, like everything he does.
We get to see a little
so
bit of that.
I hope we see that.
I love that you saw his coat. That was great.
Yes.
I was like, as soon as you like show him like how he kind of like pulls it over his knee, I was like, oh.
And I was concerned because I was like, he's wearing a brown coat. What the crap? And then as he lifts his leg up onto the stool, you see the inside of the coat is all patchwork, and I was like, yeah, that makes sense. It would be he would look ridiculous if it was just patches everywhere, but the inside, I love it. I loved it.
I'll have to look that up because I was watching this with Dad, and I think he distracted me because he was asking me about the patchwork cloak.
Yeah,
I don't see it.
It's like half a second. It's really quick. You flips it open, you see patches on the inside.
Yep.
I liked really the song. I enjoyed, and I even texted you guys like Nynaeve was definitely like my standout performance. And then they show you Tom, and I'm like, nope, Nynaeve sucks. Tom is the best character so far.
Well, he does bring like gravity, right? Gravitas to everything, and I'm very interested in what
steals every scene he's in.
Yeah. And Dana, we meet Dana, who's really important character. You know, she comes back. She's huge. I'm being sarcastic. You both look so confused right now.
Well, I was thinking, I was like,
she comes back.
The spoiler level up high?
No, she's not.
I was trying to think. I was like, wait a second.
Who's Dana? Like,
does the Dark One bring her back for something?
Yeah, right.
I don't remember this in the books. No, I liked her character a lot.
Yeah, I liked what they did. Even knowing what they were doing,
I didn't know. It completely caught me off guard, and I feel stupid for not realizing what they were doing.
Well,
Yeah.
as soon as they brought in her and she was such a good character and like such well developed and so much, I was like, oh, this is what they're doing.
Yeah.
And I had
And
no
was it-
issue with it. It was even then I was like, bring it. Yes, let's make this happen right now. I loved when he brings her into the room and
I
the
should have
references.
caught on because of that, because I was
Yeah.
like, wow, she's really likable. Like, why are they putting so much why are they giving this character who's not in the books at all so much
Yeah.
dialogue? Why are they making us like her? Are they going to make her? Oh, that's why.
Well, also when she shows him the room and she's like, yeah, no one can hear a thing, and I was like, no one can hear a thing, huh?
I feel so stupid. I'm smart. Okay, I'm really, really good at predicting plot, but apparently when it's a plot that I already know everything of, I'm a moron, and I'm so mad that it tricked me.
Yeah. My other thing about this part is I really loved the like really quick kind of reference to like queer people in this world, actually, that she kind of references like, oh, are you guys fighting? Like, you guys a couple? And then he's like, oh yeah, you think I can't get better than that, right? Like, I thought it was a really nice way to start including that sort of content that really is not in the books at all. And I don't feel like they made it awkward. It was very like very easy mention.
I liked the line. It was funny. At the same time, I was like, were they like giving off vibes that they were together? I'm like,
they were not.
I wasn't catching on any of that. I was like, was she trying to like?
Well, I'm already writing a fanfic. It's fine. We just.
I was like,
no,
I wasn't getting those vibes, but okay, lady. Like,
no, but I just thought it was a nice way to.
Yeah.
It was nice writing. I've been impressed with the writing this whole time. The way that they're updating it to a modern audience and also keeping the like people who don't understand this world, they're bringing them into it.
Mm-hmm.
And we haven't even talked about how the man or woman that could be the dragon. Like,
yeah, we have to save that for the end.
Oh, yep.
We'll talk about it, but we can't talk about it without talking about it.
Right. Anyways, that was a nice moment, and it was good. It was a really nice moment of inclusivity. So there we go. That's all I want to say. I'm stepping down from my soapbox, and we can continue. There we go. Don't understand the chase and
running through the village with a sword was a little weird.
I also keep wondering where his bow and arrow is. I feel like it appears and disappears. And
yeah.
I'm like, oh, he's got it again. Yeah. Like, where's that been?
Yeah.
Okay.
But it was great to see Tom just not care and throw a knife through her neck, and you're like, yeah, Tom. He's like, she said she was a dark friend.
Yeah, I thought that was great. She's like,
why are we still?
Hear anything that she said? Like,
why are we still talking about this?
Let's go. Like,
and then Matt is absolutely hilarious again. Yeah, South is good. Sure, like
yeah, sure, yeah, let's go.
Matt in the Aiel though.
Oh yeah,
the Aiel, which was cool.
We skipped over Matt and Tom with the Aiel. I thought it was beautiful to get, and I love that we're getting to see. Because Matt and Perrin really don't matter in book one. You just don't, because it's all from Rand's perspective, and the books quickly change and have too many viewpoint characters, honestly. Right. But book one is all from Rand's perspective, so you really don't care that much about Matt and Perrin, and the show's doing a really good job of making them likable.
Yeah, I agree. I also just really liked how they did the Aiel. I was very impressed with the concept.
I liked their costume.
Yeah, really, really cool.
And we've seen some more shots of them in action in the trailers, and I'm really looking forward to that. I liked the gray morality a little bit with like, okay, I guess sure, Luda's corpse.
But like, I'm gonna go start.
I'm not gonna watch.
Turn around, yeah.
But I really like Tom's character. He's perfect.
Yeah. Again, I just am excited to see more from him.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah, I absolutely agree. I'm really excited to see where he goes in. Right, but never mind. I was gonna jump into the next episode.
Do you have one of those beeper buttons ready in case one of us does this with it?
Well, that's pretty much episode 3. Do we want to do full spoilers now, or do we want to talk about episode 4?
What time is it?
It's 8:15. So we've been
were?
talking for a while.
I mean, I could go into episode 4 in real quick.
Okay.
It was a good episode.
First off, in episode 3, we skip Elias.
Oh, yeah. Do you think that we'll have Elias, though? I feel like that might be a character they just don't have.
I would be really sad, and I would understand if we skip him, still holding out that we might see him. Because, I mean, you need someone to explain Perrin stuff.
I'm wondering if that's what they're waiting for.
I don't see how you can skip him.
Well, at this point, though, in the books, we already know more about Perrin and what's going on there. So, I think
so practical.
I think that might be what they're waiting for, is like the big reveal of all these characters have so much going on, right? And for spoilers, we can't really talk about any of them because it'll spoil a lot of stuff. But I think that's probably why Elias hasn't come into it yet, as well. So, I'm hoping that we do see him because he is a great character. But
I like him, and he honestly doesn't do enough in the books, but he's just so entertaining. I wish he was involved more. If they bring him in, I hope they use him more.
Well, where does this start out though? We start with Maureen at the tent. Yeah.
Episode 4, starts with the. Well, let's break it up again. So let's do Perrin and Egwene first, and let's end with Moiraine's because that's it.
Did you want to do your intro?
No, I'll just change it. It's fine.
He'll edit all this out. Us talking about should we do one more episode? I hope, because this is a long live stream.
Perrin and Egwene. Nothing happens, but probably the best stuff in this episode. Like the writing is exquisite.
Yeah.
The conversation with Perrin and the Tinker woman.
The grandmother,
absolutely.
Where she talks about the way of the leaf and all.
Absolutely poetic writing, and Egwene even has a great moment with Aram.
Mm-hmm.
Not a lot to talk about because nothing happens, but really, really good world building and writing.
Agreed.
Yeah, there's a lot of history and background that's explained in that. And two, I think you also see with that conversation with Perrin kind of more of who he is and how he sees maybe some of these views. Like he asks a lot of questions about how this nonviolent approach, really works in this world that they live in where it can be so violent at times.
I like how they kind of added, this is a little side note, but how he talks about when they come of age, they take a year and they go do whatever, see if this is the life they want. And then they come back kind of like the honest tradition. Yeah, exactly. And I thought that was interesting that they brought that in to this as well, because it makes sense and it adds just more flavor to the traveling.
Oh, and I oh man, that line where he's like, most do come back, but not all do. Sometimes the wind blows away from the tree and we don't fight the wind. Like, oh, what?
Yeah, I mean, it was really great writing. This has probably been my favorite episode that we've had.
I watched the first 3 episodes like 4 times already, but I've only seen episode 4 once. I remembered that line off the top of my head. I didn't even have to think about it.
Yeah,
I didn't memorize it or anything, but it was so it stuck with me.
Yeah.
I just updated the ticker to include episode 4. It's beautiful writing. So Ranmat and Tom meet farmers. And, some good talking.
I like that you see Tom's history a little bit and why he
Tom's conversation with Rand.
Yeah. And I love that it's alluding to, again, who we don't know who the dragon is at this point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There's so much cloak and
we don't know who
shadow.
The dragon is. Don't we? Don't.
You know what? But it's just really good writing to the way that they've done all this, and also that it goes into his backstory. Because again, I wasn't sure that they would do that.
I know that was his backstory.
Yeah.
And I can't remember when you get it. I thought it was much later on in the books when he finally comes out and says, I said I killed my boy. I thought that was in book 7.
Yeah, I feel like that was the case
do you
too.
get that revelation in book 1?
I'm trying to remember.
If not, I'm so glad that we got it now.
I feel like you do, because I feel like he does, and I could be wrong again. I should research it, but I feel like there is a moment where they kind of are questioning why he's helping them and why he's following them, because you don't really
Right.
understand that in the books. He's
He
in
might.
Immensefield when the Trollocs attack, and he
just
goes with them
decides
initially.
to come along. Yeah.
Yeah, and there is a moment I think he talks about it with, I think, Nynaeve actually, and I could be wrong about that. I think I am wrong about that, because Nynaeve tracks in. I don't. Maybe they meet in Bearlawn or wherever they meet later.
I don't know.
I'm confusing myself. Anyways, he has a conversation with someone, and he justifies that moment about that as well.
Yeah, I love that we got it.
Yeah, really beautiful.
And then I love that we got it so early, because it is a very, very tragic backstory, and it's perfect for his character. Yeah, I love the conversation with him and Rand, and then Rand like reaching out to Matt as they're like lying next to each other. This was definitely like that, like, oh, no homo, like dude, you could like tell me about your feelings, bro. Like, but like,
I thought it was nice. I didn't read it that way, but I read it just as like a friend who is concerned, and obviously hasn't really maybe showed that. Like, they've had a lot of conflict in the last 2 episodes with each other, so it wasn't a nice like, hey, he's really dealing with some stuff, and we should talk about it.
Tell me about your feelings,
right? Like, it was nice, and I laughed a little. I do also like how it introduces the gentling though, and the effects that has, as well, to a male channel,
and with purpose.
Again. Very good writing.
Yeah, this episode 4 by far was the strongest yes.
I agree.
At first I was like, oh, I really like that we've slowed down and we're getting really good world building, really good stuff, and then it doesn't slow down, because it makes you think Matt killed everybody.
Yeah. And then you see the fade.
We technically still...
We don't know. It could...
If you do pause the show, though, the Murdrall's blade is covered in blood.
Yeah, I think...
When he's fighting Tom. So, exactly. But I like how they don't tell you. They're like, wait, I was like, did Matt just kill everybody?
I mean, you definitely are meant to think that. I do think that the clues are there that it was the Murdral.
Yes.
For sure.
But I love that it's vague.
Yeah.
Because I didn't even know. I was like,
yeah.
Okay. I mean, yeah, it tracks.
And you start to really see Matt, like, something is going on with Matt. And we do not know what it is. He is like vomiting. There's like
that was cool
stuff,
scene.
like the
stuff
that looks an awful lot like
it's the
taint or the taint on the one power. Like, there's so much going on here.
Well, and they even hint like he's showing all the signs of a male channeler.
Yeah.
Really cool. And then Tom fights a fade
and maybe dies. Like, we don't know what happens at this point.
So. And I'm really glad that Tom fights a fade. That does happen in the books in a different place, and the same thing happens where Rand and Matt have to run away, and we don't know if he's alive. And I love that we stuck with the boys' perspective. They're like, run, and then a little fighting, and then the door closes, and then
okay, bye. I
mean, I would like to see this fight, but I guess we don't get to. And he leaves the poor little girl's Brigitta doll. What a jerk!
Is that really what it is, Brigitta?
It was. She said, "This is Brigitta."
I need to watch this episode again, and
I'm very excited. She said, "You can have my Brigitta doll."
I love that call out. That's such. See, it's just stuff like that where I'm like, yes, this is such a good. Oh, it's so good. Right?
And that little girl did such a good job, and she watches my videos.
Interesting. That's just that girl. She was the highlight of the whole episode.
I honestly thought like her performance was fantastic, and
no, it really was.
Child actors, often do a bad job, and her it was so good, and my wife was very upset when she died.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
good job.
Yeah, well done. Like she did do a really good job, especially with like that much interaction between the two characters. It is definitely a difficult thing to do, right? Like Nate, you and I mean, we've made our films when we were kids,
Yeah,
and
when we were little kids.
they didn't turn out that great. That's for sure.
No, I really like that moment too, where she's clearly like, "I don't want to be here. Like, my mom doesn't like you. Like, you
Yeah.
know, I gotta go. But here, I guess you look pretty bad, so take this. Like, maybe you need
Yeah.
it."
Well, shout out to Robyn Betteridge. Go check out her. She has a YouTube channel. So, and then we got to move on to Lan Moraine and Nynaeve and Red Aja. Great world building.
Yeah.
And good character development with Nynaeve and Lan.
And Leandrin as well, who is weirdly more likable than in the books. You really dislike this character in the books, but I'm like,
they're doing a good job of showing her motivation. And you're like,
which is really good.
I guess from your perspective, I could understand. You're wrong. And
again, I really like the like you said, the world building where she goes to the shielding, Logain being shielded.
Yeah.
And they talk about the different levels of power and how hard it is for them to be holding him there and all of these things.
There were a lot of little unnecessarily good details.
Yeah.
Where like when they all link together at the end, they all like do a similar motion.
Thing. Mm-hmm.
You didn't need to do that. You could have just showed them all, linking. But like it's the uniformity that they're paying attention to this stuff, and I think it's cool. And we get good character work.
I think with that, I really liked the campfire scene where they're
with
all
mortars.
Yeah, like that was great, and because I mean that's definitely how you can imagine it, right? Is like all the warders just telling their battle stories. And
well, and you could also see that it was a rare moment for them. Like we don't get together often because we're usually doing stuff, but we all happen to be here, and it was just people catching up, and it was a very human moment.
Yeah.
I liked how it showed the relationships between not only the warders, but the warders and their Aes Sedai as well. Like the green who talks about that was the other thing. They kind of talk about the Ajas and their purposes a little bit.
Right. Yeah.
But also how the green talks about how she could never have one warder, and then they kind of have a very, very different relationship than Moraine and Lan do, and they live that as well. So it's very.
There was one element of that was a little confusing, but I don't know the books well enough, because it kind of felt like they were all romantic, like with the Aes Sedai and the warders, like because it happened like 3 times. The Aes Sedai would show up and the warder would leave, and they were all giving each other the eye. But obviously, it was the pair of 3 that was like the most like this is obviously what they're going to do.
Right,
the rest was like, are they or not? And I don't remember in the books because I thought it was just the green Aja that was frequently openly romantic.
I feel like that's what it kind of alluded to, though, because I feel like you mostly saw green sisters here, and then the Reds.
Well, one of them was brown. One of them was brown.
Yeah, I think
because I thought because the green are the fighting Aja, right?
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
They're the battle
and I thought, I could be remembering wrong, that most of the other Ajas frowned upon that.
I don't know if it was frowned upon necessarily. It was definitely depending on the sister and their warder. But yeah, the Greens for sure.
The Red Ajas would never do it.
They would never even have a warder. The Reds don't even have warders.
Because they hate men.
They hate men.
And I thought that most of the other Ajas kind of like, if it happened, they weren't doing it openly like that. But then the Green Ajas were like, yeah, we're gonna sleep with our warder.
Yeah, they're basically like their lovers and their they're not husbands. Or
And I will have to watch the scene back because I can't remember the colors.
I don't either.
everyone
The
was
one
wearing.
that I remember
And
specifically,
it was
were
dark,
the
and so
three.
brown and green look the same.
Yeah. I remember the three specifically, but they
Yes.
also talk about how Moraine and Lan are very odd. They're very different
Yes.
as well, and the Blue
she's
Aja in
Blue Aja.
general. Yeah.
Yeah, and it would make sense that the green Aja would be present because they are the fighting Aja, and so maybe it was all green sisters that were doing that. I don't know. I'll have to look it up again.
Yeah, I was gonna say I don't even remember really seeing any. I mean, there was the red. There was a little bit of the red Aja, and then there was some green, and then Moraine. Like that's pretty much all I.
Yeah,
really
I remember.
And there is the one brown sister who dies.
Oh,
When?
oh,
When does she?
Are you talking about the one that was helping to
Shield Logan?
No, that was green. That was a green.
Yeah,
one.
she was green as well.
She was green. Yeah, she was definitely.
I'm pretty
green.
sure they were all green.
The brown. There is a brown sister. It's Moraine's friend. She doesn't die. One of them dies. I know there's a brown sister. She's the one that heals Moraine.
I thought that was a green sister.
No, it's.
Are we sure?
Yes. Hold on.
I remember her wearing. I don't remember it really being alluded to that her and her order, though, regardless, were like really romantic. It was really the two green sisters.
It's her. It's the brown sister with her ex order, and yeah, it did not show them romantic.
Yeah. So I would again say it's probably they're alluding to the fact that the greens generally have more warders and that they can be romantic in nature.
Yeah,
is what I would say. I'm gonna watch this again after we finish here, so we can just like text it.
Okay.
Next episode, we'll talk about.
Next episode, we'll
which
figure
one of
out
us was wrong.
who was right and who was right.
Because
Okay.
I remember wondering why she wasn't yellow, since she was the one who was like healing.
I thought brown sisters were healers.
No, it's the yellow.
Okay.
The brown sisters are the ones who research things.
The
like
researchers.
crazy.
You're right. Okay. Okay. So then Logain's people show up and they fight.
Oh, can we also talk about the first scene though with Logain and the king?
Oh,
and the two like shadow figures behind him, which were so well done.
That was really well done.
One of the best moments, actually, where you see the like madness and the taint really manifesting. And just really, really cool stuff.
I like that it's being depicted as like schizophrenia. I think that makes a lot of sense.
Mm-hmm. Jared sneezed again. I betcha. Either that or he's gone for good.
Well, yeah. Well, his mic's still on. So.
But yeah, really, really cool.
Yeah, no, I loved that it showed that he's not like a bad guy. Like he's doing what he thinks is right.
He really thinks he's the dragon. Yeah, and so do we maybe. Like
every
single
character, like even the White Cloaks, they're doing what they think is right, and it's cool.
Yeah, I actually really like that scene too because
I think Pedro Niles probably the only one who's like evil for fun. But mostly the White Cloaks, you can tell that like okay, go on.
Yeah, exactly. But no, like even that scene, like because it starts out and it's this huge battle scene, right? And so then when he shows up and he comes up to the king, you're like, oh, okay, well he's gonna slaughter him, you know. And then after you start hearing the voices, like
and he'll betray you. He'll betray you.
Yeah,
so cool.
It's so cool how they did that. And what I love too about that scene was how it alludes to so much more that we're gonna hopefully see. You know, and this whole time I'm like, oh, I can't wait to see more of this. Right?
Yeah. It was a good opener.
But
before we get to the best part of the episode, which is that last scene, Lan and Nynaeve again, though they had some great moments, and you really see more of Lan's, actually both of their history, right? Because you hear
the old tongue.
Yeah, you hear Nynaeve say old tongue, and so there's definitely more going on there.
Yeah, and I love the moment. It's like, do you even know what you're saying? And she's like, no, it's just something my parents said. Well, do you want to know? Like, what?
Yeah, I thought that was really beautiful, and how they bring it again into his history and his backstory. Because there's so much that goes on there. So
which we still haven't gotten a whole lot of his backstory because it's good, but we're definitely going to hear about it at the end of the season?
Well, the battle. So they're attacked,
Yes.
and that was pretty cool. That was one of the moments we really saw in the promos, which I was worried about because I thought it was kind of cheesy,
Mhm.
but it ended. I wasn't disappointed with the arrows and that whole sequence,
Mhm.
and then they're being chased in the woods and lots of good stuff happening there.
Yeah, it was exciting. I felt like they could have done a better job of showing like the stakes a little bit. Like we didn't know how many people were attacking,
Mhm.
but it had to have been a small group because they're dispelled pretty easily
Yeah.
and just used as a distraction so that Logain can break his shield, basically.
And I always run into this thing too where I just want them to showcase Aes Sedai because they're such powerhouses,
Mhm.
and I understand some of the decision making there too, but I wish they could have been a little more of a threat instead of how many of them died? Like several of them died in this battle,
Yeah.
which is kind of disappointing.
They showed at least 2 people.
At least 2 of them, yeah.
Yeah, like one red, definitely. Like maybe they didn't die, but they showed them getting shot and full of arrows.
I do like how they are vulnerable. Like they can do a
I
lot of
agree.
damage. They could do a lot of damage, but like in episode 1, you can also just get hit with an arrow if you're not paying attention because you can't track like everything, right?
I agree. So the issue that I see with that is that they're generally in the books they're so limited, right? There's like maybe 500 sisters that they talk about in the tower, like full sisters. And I think later in the books that number grows. It's a little higher. But if we've already lost like so many. If you think about the White Cloaks as well in this one episode, it's really disappointing if that number is going to stay the same. So I feel like they have to either up the power and in that direction or up the numbers that they have there. And I'm not sure that I want them to have more numbers of Aes Sedai because that kind of can change some things as well and just the narrative.
Make them disposable.
Yeah, right. Because there's, anyways.
But yeah, I understand. I think I just need to see more before I can like decide whether or not I like it.
Yeah.
But then we get the coolest. Man,
so good.
This episode was so good. This episode was so slow, and then and Moraine. So he breaks the shield, and then Moraine shows up. And my wife was like, "Where's Moraine this whole time?" I was like, "Yeah, it probably should be showing what she's doing, but I guess she's still kind of recovering. Like, because even after you heal, you're very weak. So it's explained. It's just not explained in the show. But then she shows up, and I was like, "Oh, are we gonna get like a showdown?"
Right.
And then I was like, "Oh, I like this better."
But also, how
she outsmarts him.
Broke that shield though too.
That was cool.
Almost effortlessly how it showed.
Well, he just waited till they were distracted, and then.
Boom. This was the other thing too that I wanted to mention is that he doesn't use any hands in all his channeling. He doesn't do anything. So that was something that I wondered
because no one taught him.
Interesting.
That is interesting. Yeah, that is really interesting.
He learned it on his own.
That is.
That's why I don't think they're making the change.
I did like that though. How she kind of outsmarts him. You see more about his madness, which is very interesting as well, and why he thinks he's the dragon.
I thought it was great. And at first you don't even know. It's like, is she being sincere?
Right.
Or is she tricking him the whole time? But I think she knew that he wasn't the dragon. But I think she realizes he could still be a tool.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah.
And so cool. Because I was like, oh, showdown. But then what happened was even better.
So good.
And then everyone dies.
Yeah.
And
I actually gasped at the screen. I literally did. I was like, "What?"
I was definitely. I'll admit it. I was crying at this point. I started crying. I was like, "That was."
This episode didn't trick me.
I wasn't tricked at all.
You didn't get me like you did in episode 3. Thank you very much. You got my wife. Pretty good. She saw Lan bleeding out and was like, no. No.
I mean, I had the same reaction even though I knew what had to happen, right?
Yeah, me too.
And I still was just like, what? Excuse me? But for that final scene, which like I can't tell if we're ready to even say what happens, but it was so good. Like
Yeah.
I had full body chills. It was so well done.
Yep.
And
me
talking
too.
about the
Yeah, we can say it. I mean,
right, Nynaeve channels, and it is like the as bright as the sun. Like it's so much power and
Right.
so amazing. And she had just talked about that with Logain, and it was such a good moment. I'd like, oh, I'm getting chills now. It was so good.
Yeah, me too.
And everyone's healed, of course.
Yeah, she saves everybody except for the one that was killed earlier.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Who I can't remember which one it was.
Yeah.
Well, real quick with that though. So before, like, I gotta say that whole effect where like he literally like melts his cage.
Melts the bars.
That was cool. That was way cool.
Well, and it's super smart too, because like he didn't break the shield though. He channeled the axes which were sticking through his shield, and that
yeah, like
it was
so many good things.
Cool. Yeah. And because he's mad because it was his Aes Sedai that was killed earlier in the scene, so everyone's brought back except for her, and he's gonna have issues. But it was really good. And I liked that it, with her healing, you could still tell she was not in control.
Yeah.
Because I am a bit concerned, and I don't think they will do this, and I hope they don't. I hope they don't make Nynaeve too much of like a Mary Sue.
Right.
Because a lot of the characters kind of are in the books, like they really catch on quickly. But Nynaeve's character was so interesting and stood apart in the books because she really struggles learning, because she can only do it when she's pissed off.
Yeah.
And that whole arc in the book where it's so good. I loved it, how it was a struggle for her and she has to learn to deal with that. So I hope they don't just make her a god now, and be able to do that all the time.
I also like that you see her battling through the battle. Like she's in real danger of her own life.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't take it until that moment that she like channels. And it's just amazing the way they did it.
I also think it's done a really good job of showing Nynaeve and Lan's connection.
Yeah.
Which
in the books was awful. You don't see it until suddenly it's like, they have a connection.
It comes out of it. I was so confused in the book. I was like, wait, what?
Yeah.
I didn't even know what was happening.
My only critique of this moment, and it's such a minor thing, and I wonder if it's even going to matter or whatever the case is, but in the books, they do talk about Logain's power level, and I feel like Logain was actually close to the same power as the dragon. Like, not quite as much. But like, he was here, and he was here. So there's such a disparity right now.
But it did show him very strong. Yeah. But we do know the dragon is stronger, and we know that Logain is not as powerful as someone else.
And it does also talk about how they grow in power, which isn't something you have really seen yet.
Right.
So maybe that's still happening. But
well, they also do have that scene where Moiraine first comes in and starts to help shield him, where she mentioned she's like, oh, he's only in half. Like this isn't even his like strongest.
Oh, you're right. She does.
She was only shielding half of his power.
Right.
Yeah.
Because I do know that I thought they did a great job of mentioning that and the way that works. And that scene specifically was a standout because I feel like that's a hard thing to show in a TV show. But it was, you could see the weight fall onto her and how difficult it was. So
yeah,
I agree. But so good.
So, I mean, the ending is absolutely phenomenal, and none of it is in the book at all.
Nope.
It's completely made up, and I loved it.
Yeah, I have no issues at all. I thought it was really, really good.
At one point that on that note, it was really smart of them to bring in Logain like this, because in the adaptation, right, you have to learn about how male channeling works. And in the book, it's just kind of done through instruction, right? Like, hey, Bran, hey, male characters, this is how it will work, and this, right? And you always want, in film and adaptation, you want to show and not tell.
Yeah.
And so this, wordlessly, with some words, but shows you what male channeling is and its consequences. He's crazy.
Yeah.
And it's terrifying.
Well, I don't think you actually see that in the books, though, until several books later. So I feel like that's why it's nice that they can introduce this.
Instead of just having a scene with Tam, or sorry, with not Tam, with Tom and Rand saying, "Hey, guess what? Channeling's dangerous, and it killed my boy." You get to see it.
Yeah, it's really good.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and that last scene was just amazing. Where and it was so visually stunning, where they showed him being stilled and literally like
it ripped out. It was like it looked painful,
and he's crying.
Yeah, that part.
At the end of the episode, like you see a tear as it's yanked. You see a tear fall, and then when he's on the ground, he's weeping, and I'm like, oh, freak.
Like,
I thought his face looked like kind of funny when he's like slow motion, like. But at the same time, I was like full chills and was like,
it was like black wings almost.
Yeah, it was beautiful. It was so good.
Brilliant interpreration, I think.
I can't wait till the next episode. Like I just want. I'm so excited. So.
I'm pumped. So, I mean, should we get into like full series spoilers now, and all no holds barred, no bars holded? What is it?
I actually
pull out the stops.
Maybe we should wait to do that for the season finale,
or we can have a separate one so everyone knows it's full spoilers and we talk about everything. But,
okay. Okay. I'm switching it to high. Say one thing and just spoil. You've been warned. Say one thing. When you go.
I mean, the biggest spoiler that I see so far is that it's not one of the women. The dragon is going to be.
How do we feel about?
I think it's good. I think there's like more stakes. You understand again, maybe why Egwene and Nynaeve are here.
Yeah.
I also like that they mentioned that the wheel has maybe turned out a woman as the dragon before, and again, just. The times that we live in and like modern days, gender is such an interesting thing right now, and it's such a big thing right now. And so I feel like for them to just ignore that part of the story, which is so by gender focused, right? Like gender normality.
Yeah.
It's just very interesting. So I see why they're doing it.
Yeah, it's definitely the biggest change, and I think we should do a video on it. Like just talking about that.
So many things I could talk about. All the spoilers.
I definitely see the positives, but I also see the negatives, and I also know that a lot of people have been disappointed in the show because of it. But,
yeah, I just feel like that's such a dumb thing to be disappointed about.
Okay.
It doesn't really change things when you think about it.
I can think of a few things that it would affect, but let's talk about it.
Yeah, I think let's
do a whole another video just talking about, can the dragon be a girl?
Or I would even say like gender in the Wheel of Time.
Gender.
Because there's so many things.
Gender bender. I'm trying to come up with a stinger, but thanks so much for being on the show. And after show, it's a bad name. We might change. I don't know. Watt talk. I think that's a thing.
There you go. Yeah.
It's been a blast. So thanks. Anything else? You guys have anything to plug? You guys aren't famous like me.
What was my app called? Meow something?
Meow Mixer.
Meow Mixer.
It's Tinder for cats.
Yep. We also have recipes for cat-based mixers as well, if you're into that.
And if you haven't had a chance to go check the Taj Mahal, please do.
Stop.
It's a famous building in India.
Okay, I gotta hop out. See you guys.
Yeah,
All right. Yeah. Bye.
Okay, bye.
thanks. You have a great evening.
You too, man.